James T. Kirk.
I don't know you.
I am Spock.
You can't even speak. I got your gun.
I may throw up on you.
My customary farewell would appear oddly self-serving. I shall simply say, good luck.
You heard it up top. We take a journey once more as we boldly go where we have gone many, many times, but are happy to return to. That's right, because we're talking a new timeline. In fact, it's Star Trek 2009 here on Normies Like Us. Your hosts, rebooted Captain Colin.
Wow. It's Mike Coy.
Wow. And it's no longer Captain Jacques-Luc Picard. It's now Captain Jacob T. Kirk, reporting for duty.
Kirk.
Or Cadet Jacob T. Kirk.
There we go.
First officer
as I currently
Jacob T.
ranked.
Kirk.
Yes.
We'll see.
Go through a lot of rank changes. We'll see how I end up.
Yeah. And if you're watching the YouTube, I'm getting some heavy lens flares right now. Hopefully
man.
That's just going to
Are you on the bridge of the Enterprise?
Yeah, Mike is flying through the J.J. Abrams world right now.
It's either that or an Apple store. But famously, we're here to... I'm going to stop the gimmick now. But this is the J.J. Abrams, the first reboot kind of the Star Trek timeline. And, memes aside about the lens flares. This is kind of an entry point for Trek for a lot of younger people who really missed Next Gen and all that. And it was like, all right, let's try to make a summer blockbuster for the youth, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a whole new Trek. This ain't your father's Star Trek, okay? So get ready.
Well,
it's extreme.
You say that, Jake.
Right.
And yet I feel so happy to return to my father's characters, to leave those next gen kids behind who I have said in the past don't feel like my crew, to now go to where I'm like, ooh, I know everybody's names. I know who they are. I know my little characters. My little friends are back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it has, having gone through all those OG movies, has given me a new appreciation of this movie and maybe the sequels. So we'll talk about that in the next couple months. But I have a new appreciation that maybe I didn't have in 2009 when I saw this movie in theaters and thought it was, okay, but I wasn't the Star Trek fan that I am now.
Can I ask, what is y'all's appreciation level of J.J. Abrams? Mike, obviously we've talked about him before on a little franchise called Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Never heard of it.
This is his reel to get Star Wars, kind of.
Yeah.
Which we can
Kind
talk
of.
about
His
that
audition
stuff
tape.
here. Yeah, that's how it feels. Because he admitted he wasn't a Star Trek fan. I don't know if I want to blow this, but it was like he liked Star Wars and kind of did a thing. But I liked Lost a lot until the ending. But I was really, really into Lost. But then when it ended in such like a terrible way, literally telling the audience to just let it go. Like I told you we would have all these answers, and they're literally like, just let it go, Jack. I'm like, nah, fuck you, dude. So I was a little disappointed. I had my trust broken. And I think, honestly, this movie I was like, damn, you know what? Not bad. And then by the time he did Star Wars, I'm back to my trust being broken because he can't do endings. Somehow Palpatine returned.
Right.
Somehow.
It's better at
So
thinking up.
I'm outside. I'm off on JJ, but we'll talk about this movie in particular.
Sure.
But personally, I'm kind of off on him. Yeah. Jacob, how about you?
Yeah, I think with Lost, he's better at thinking up interesting questions without knowing the answer to those questions. And then when you have to finally get to the answer, it's kind of a letdown. But interestingly topical with this report about Lost behind the scenes coming out recently about the crew maybe not having the best work environment on the set of Lost. So that's interesting.
Oh, geez.
Don't know if you heard about that at all.
No,
But,
I haven't seen that.
No. Well, yeah, there was just an article about kind of talking about how there was some stuff going on the shoots of Lost. So, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah. Marquee television 2008 may have been difficult. Okay.
Yeah.
I believe it.
But funny story about J.J. Abrams. So I've been rewatching all of the Mission Impossibles recently, getting ready for Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And I just watched, the day before I watched this movie, I watched Mission Impossible 3, which is the movie that he did right before this movie. And it was his film debut as a director. Like he'd been known for TV, Alias, Felicity, Lost. Now he's doing Mission Impossible 3, his first movie. From that, he gets the Star Trek job, which I'll explain later. But
no kidding.
very interesting. So I saw 2 J.J. Abrams movies back to back. I'm just going through his whole filmography, I guess.
Oh yeah,
I need to watch
Simon
Super
Pegg
8
connection. You know.
Yeah.
And were they there, Jacob? That's his first ever film, of course. Were the lens flares in MI3?
No, not really. I would say the look of MI3, it does kind of look like Star Trek with the sort of high contrast colors and in the
Clean.
action scenes, the kind of chaotic camera control in the action scenes, but not so much the lens flares, which is sort of, I think, something that he adds for Star Trek and for the bridge kind of. That's his idea of the bridge, is like it's this, like you said, Apple Store. Everything's white and shiny and reflective.
Right. Oh,
but
and we'll talk about that more, the style.
Yeah.
Of it, but yeah.
Wow.
A bold choice was made, but
but Mission Impossible 3, actually, the creative team on that, written by Roberto Orci and Alex Kurtzman. We'll talk about those guys because they also wrote this movie, and so it's same creative team, same director, same writers, and I'm excited to get into it for sure.
Interesting. Colin, how about you? Where are you at with J.J. Abrams?
Well, and look, we are old enough that Felicity was something that aired while I was a teen, and I definitely just did not watch it. And Alias felt like something where when I saw the commercials, I was like, maybe my mom would like that. But I don't believe I or her ever checked it out. No. And then
Alias...
Lost.
Oh, go ahead. It just felt like
Dark
Angel
did you
with
watch
Jennifer Garner. No.
Dark
Mike,
Angel, made by James Cameron, right?
Yeah. I couldn't figure out when Dark Angel was airing, so let alone am I ever going to be able to figure out when fucking Alias is airing. So please, Jesus Christ.
Sorry, go ahead, yeah.
And then Lost, I watched the pilot. I mean, it was a huge deal. I don't know if people remember, but there was such a thing as event TV and like water cooler talk and all that stuff that blah, blah, blah has disintegrated the fabric of time, blah, blah. You could maybe make an argument. Lost was one of those last shows. I know you've said Game of Thrones, Jacob, but for like mainstream, aired on TV, not prestige television, ABC, like one of the original channels, it's a huge fucking deal, right?
Network,
absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, I never watched Alias or Felicity either, but I was a big Lost fan at the time, so I was watching Lost. I feel like during that time, there was 2 shows. It was really Lost and Heroes, so maybe another connection to this movie.
Wow,
we'll talk about.
Holy crap.
And
I
there
remember that
was
show,
something
Heroes.
I was a huge fan of, Jacob. Tim Kring's Heroes, but I didn't finish. I never went through with Lost. I maybe did the first season. I definitely remember like the code and the bunker, and like that's it for me. So I never got let down by him.
You never got in the bunker? Because that was like season.
You never met
2,
Desmond, not Penny's boat, you know?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It
I
just
remember
gets
Charlie. I remember Crankshaft or Overdrive.
Drive
or
Shaft.
they were called. There
Charlie,
we go. Great.
You all,
Fantastic.
everybody.
Not Penny's boat.
Guys, I don't know. I hate to be triggering anybody, but
that guy's in a Star Wars.
Well,
yeah. He hangs out where the Palpatine returned.
Oh, one of the hobbits is. It's definitely
it's
that
him.
one, right? Yeah, it has to be. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
But yeah, Lost was huge, and I remember like every week at school we're predicting what's going to happen. But one anecdote, personal one, is I had the DVDs to catch up to like season 3 because I didn't get in.
Shit.
So my friends lent me the DVDs, and I burned through them to catch up. And I put in season 1, episode 1, and it says the pilot. And in that episode, the plane crashes, and they're looking for the pilot, and he dies. And I didn't realize that was the term for a first episode in a series. I thought it was literally the episode was about the pilot,
of course,
of the airplane. So
the famous fact about Lost was that Matthew Fox's character Jack was originally only going to be in the pilot and then die at the end of the pilot, but they liked him so much as the main character they just retooled the show and made him the main character, basically, even though it is an ensemble.
Interesting.
Right.
I like Damon Lindelof and what he's gone on to do, like Watchmen and stuff. I never watched
Leftovers.
I almost called it Passengers. Leftovers. Thank you.
And Damon Lindelof, of course, also in that J.J. Abrams circle.
Yes.
He produced this movie, this Star Trek movie.
All right.
Matt
like
Reeves in this house. You know, it's the school of filmmakers. Yeah.
But yeah, let's get
jump
into
it.
Yes,
I
yes,
think we're already, we're at Impulse. We're about to hit Warp. Let's dive right in on Star Trek 2009. right after this. Punch it.
We're back here on Normies Like Us. We're coming back down to cruising altitude. That's right. As we're talking Star Trek 2009 here on Normies Like Us. We have to keep saying the 2009. It feels weird to just call it Star Trek, right, guys?
Yeah,
Star Trek 2009. Yeah.
You can't, technically, the motion picture has a subtitle, so you could call it Star Trek, but that just gets confusing.
Star Trek the movie?
Yeah.
Then you think the series.
If you were going to make a new subtitle for this, what would you call it?
I don't know. I would just call it Star Trek.
I would call it Star Trek Paradox.
I like
it's like
that.
It's like when a band has a self-titled album that's like,
and it's like their third or fourth album. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, what do you call this? It's just the self-titled album.
Yeah. So this is the self-titled Star Trek. Obviously, none of the original band members. Well, one maybe. Yes, definitely. But yeah, Jacob, can you tell us a little bit about the history of this? Yeah.
Well,
Please.
there's the reason behind that name, of course, is after the release of Nemesis and after Enterprise was canceled around 2005, Star Trek was kind of at its lowest point, where it's like there's no new projects on the horizon. Paramount was like, what are we doing with this property? We're not going ahead with another TNG movie. So what they decided to do, well, there's some behind the scenes stuff happened where CBS, Viacom and CBS split. So Paramount was owned by CBS. Or they were owned by Viacom, but CBS got the Star Trek properties. I don't know. It's very confusing business stuff. But basically, Les Moonves, the head of CBS at that time, gave Paramount an ultimatum of like, you need to make you need to be developing a new Star Trek movie, or you're going to lose the rights to Star Trek. So they're like, okay, what are we going to do? Let's do a soft reboot. We're going to completely change it. We're going to throw away everything that we've known. We're going to go in a totally different direction. And they actually looked at Mission Impossible 3 and said, let's get the creative team behind this. So that's kind of, why I mentioned it earlier. And it's weird how, so Mission Impossible 3, the way J.J. Abrams got that job was Tom Cruise was just like a fan of Lost, like we were talking about. So Tom Cruise was watching Lost every week. He's like, let's get these guys for this next Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible 2, kind of a not super well liked, kind of known as the worst one, directed by John Woo, 2000. So he's like, we need some fresh perspective. Let's get J.J. Abrams. And let's get these writers named Roberto Orci and Alex Kurtzman. Now, these names may sound familiar to you, normies. Specifically, Alex Kurtzman, who is now in control of the whole creative direction of Star Trek today. He's sort of the Kevin Feige of Star Trek. So we've talked about him a number of times, including, Star Trek Discovery, Picard, Strange New Worlds, our favorite.
And I truly believe, outside of these great successes in a film today that we're going to talk about that I really love and enjoy, I truly believe, Jacob, when you say you might have heard this name before, it might have been you and Mike saying, fuck Alex Kurtzman. Like our take on this man, of course, has not been kind or gentle.
No, I've had a lot of harsh things to say about him. I'm sure he's a nice person. I've never met him, but just
couldn't care less.
Projects that he's written, I've not been a fan of. They also, this writing team wrote a lot of movies that I'm not a huge fan of, like Transformers, Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, some real classics. Some really great movies. The Mummy with Tom Cruise. So
a classic,
nothing
but
classic.
Classic, Mike.
Yeah, the start of the Dark Universe, of course.
Yeah,
but the start and end.
Favorite franchise.
The start and end, and it's interesting that over the course of 3 months, sorry, we're going to talk about these films, these very specific films, and kind of talking about, is this a cul-de-sac or a dead end? Will we see more of this Kelvin timeline? It'll be interesting to see. I don't know.
Yeah. They've been a kind of a will they, won't they, with the fourth installment. So we'll see. It's interesting to revisit these. So. And like Jacob said up at the top, and rewatching the original series stuff and like seeing all these movies now to recontextualize this, it has been pretty interesting.
It gives you new appreciation.
Yeah, and I almost see it is like a continuation of that, like to a point, like it is coming from that prime timeline. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that they, it's not a straight reboot. It takes place technically within the same canon universe of Star Trek, but because it involves multiverses, time travel, something that's really hot in 2023, they're a little ahead of the time in 2009, you might say.
Star Trek have been doing that, but full spoilers for 2009 Star Trek and all the other movies, guys.
Yes.
But I want to jump into it. I mean, how did you feel when you finished, or do you have more fun facts, I guess, before we
I just want to say, like, the reason, so like I was saying, the reason they called it Star Trek, Star Trek, was to not confuse people and say, this is a reboot of sorts. You don't
Star Trek Reborn.
It's kind of saying you don't need to see any of the previous ones to understand what's going on. It's just the first in a series, so that's why they call it Star Trek. Let's keep it, short, clean, easy to remember. And normies can go see it, and see a nice action comedy type movie.
That is very studio. And like we see that now where like sequels are now just being called the original movie's name, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it's just on Netflix now, and it's like,
it's a trend.
Right.
But to answer your earlier question, Mike, I would call this Star Trek: The Wrath of Nero.
The Wrath of Nero. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other subtitles, Jacob? The Search for Spock?
That's amazing.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, The Search for Pike. Yeah.
There we go.
Well, it is kind of about someone searching for a Spock.
A little bit. Oh, yeah.
He finds a Spock. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Nero's searching for Spock. True.
Yeah. So here we go.
Right, The Search for Spock 2.
The Search for Spock.
The Search for Spock 2.
I'll
only come back
confusing.
if you make a sequel to my film, The Search for Spock. Okay.
I really
weird
like The
terms.
Search for Spock too.
But yeah, so they decided to go in this whole new direction. We're going to recast all the OG characters. It's a prequel of sorts because it starts obviously before Kirk is made captain of the Enterprise. He starts out, he's just an unruly cadet, right?
We get origin stories for all these characters, like when they're at the academy. We have
love it.
Yeah, what's our cast here, right?
Love it.
Zachary Quinto as Spock. We have
hit me up, Mike.
Chris Pine as Kirk. We have Zoe Saldana doing a great job as Uhura, and then we have Bones, Carl Urban.
Carl Urban,
that's right.
Our favorite boy from The Boys, Butcher.
Simon Pegg as Scotty.
Simon Pegg as Scotty.
Anton Yelkin as Chekhov.
Rest in peace. Yeah.
And John Cho as
Hikaru
Sulu.
Sulu.
Let's do 5 minutes on each of these people. So hold on.
Yeah.
And Eric Bannon as Nero.
As the villain of this picture.
I liked the order we put those all in, because that's about where I put Eric Bannon's performance.
Yeah.
The Incredible Hulk. Come on.
Yeah.
Up top, I don't like everything about this movie, but I do think one of the strongest parts of it is the casting.
Agree.
And they nailed like all of the OG characters. I feel like they really nailed the casting on.
From,
Chris Pine all the way down.
%.
Now, but let's talk about this little twink named Chris Pine.
He's our boy. Now, Mike has been calling him Ed again, I believe, in like 5 episodes in a row, literally saying, what if Ed was in this? What if Ed was in this? Now we're watching this movie where it's like, he is in this. It's great.
Yep. We get Ed in. We're happy.
He's just a young guy making his breakout role. Well, first, should we even... Well, we can talk about this after cast, but the first scene of this, of course, featuring George Kirk, we can talk about.
Oh yeah, we get a Chris Hemsworth early on. We get
a different Hollywood Chris.
Yeah, we learn about the birth of Kirk. His father is on the what ship were they on?
This is the Kelvin.
The USS Kelvin.
This is the USS Kelvin, setting off the universe of the Kelvin timeline.
Yeah. Yep. So they're in the Kelvin.
So he's on board the USS Kelvin. He's first officer. Nero appears through this, lightning storm that they find. The captain goes over, gets killed, obviously.
They're completely outmatched. Yeah, it's like the future technology. They stand no chance, right?
Does that thing where I know in Star Trek everybody's like peaceful and logical, but we're literally like the bad guys like, send us your captain. He's like, I'll be right over.
Yeah. This is a trap.
Yeah, well, I guess they don't know what to expect, but it's a pretty scary looking ship. But George Kirk is made captain. for about 15 minutes or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ordering the evacuation of the ship. The ship's about to blow up, but of course, as the acting captain, he has to stay on board the ship. While
it's manual
his
only,
pregnant
autopilot's
wife,
ruined. Yeah,
This is my
it can't
favorite
use that.
sequence in the entire film. I think this
It's a
looks
great
astounding.
start. Yeah,
It's an incredible kickoff to a new franchise. Narratively, it's fun, it's cool, it's exciting, it sets up great stakes. I like when this happens in like other movies, like similar things, like if you guys recall the ending to Captain America the First Avenger, where he has to be on the radio with Peggy and say, like, what would our first dance be like as he's crashing a plane?
Oh,
like that
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
self-inflicted death where you're having a moment to still be like, so what are we going to name the kid? We could name after your father. Tiberius? Are you insane?
That's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Loved
I'm
it.
like
Love that.
crying and laughing
Name
and
him after your
happier than
dad.
I've ever been in my life. Like, it's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Like it is a trope, but it works good. And like, you know, Chris Hemsworth, to hear him with like a not Thor accent, it's very
Yes.
cool. He's just doing an American thing.
I'm just a
And we-
guy.
Yeah, just a guy on a ship. Also, I need to point out Edgin had one of those in Wonder Woman when he had to crash his plane. And
Yes, you're
make a love
100%
speech.
right that is how that film ends.
It's in his
My-
DNA.
He comes back and takes over the
That
body
film
of
is
someone
so
from the
much like
1980s.
Captain
That's
America.
right.
I forgot.
But so then,
Yeah, but-
as the escape shuttle is being birthed into space, Jim Kirk is birthed into this
That's
universe.
right. We've got some great imagery there, Mike.
Yeah.
Truly, you know, his mother's very pregnant, so she has the baby as the ship is exploding, basically. So he's born into this world the same day that his father dies, and that sets up. I feel like that sets up this whole Kirk character in this universe. This whole inciting incident of his dad dying when he was a baby, sets him on a different
Kirk
path.
who,
right?
again, we have watched 6 films, so a little license to speak on him, and if we've observed the original film as well, right? Or I guess, is it 7 with Generations?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's way too
He's
many.
chopping
films,
wood.
guys. But to say that we know who Captain Kirk is, we know who he kind of is as a character. He's rebellious, yes, but of course, as a rule follower, he's very much the captain, you know, the person who's in charge, and is very dashing, very cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kind of leads with his gut, you know, follows his instinct, you know. Yeah, you know, he has a code of ethics and honor. He would do things
Yes.
unconventionally, but you know,
Yes.
he always does it from a place of good, right?
Yes.
Generally.
Chris
Right.
Pine, pretty much just an asshole. Like, pretty much just a piece of shit, this early version of him, right? Just kind of
Yeah.
like the rogue, the card, you know,
He's very
shark.
reckless, impulsive.
Doesn't want to take responsibility. It's very different from the Kirk that would have been on the show because he has a whole
Yes.
different upbringing, right? So that's what they're
Yes.
introducing now.
Right, and that's what splits this timeline. And that kind of gets at something that I think about this film. It's sort of like, oh, we're just going to be, you know, over the top in every way that we can be. Like, again, this is not your father's Trek. Like, we're going to have explosions, fist fights, fucking Beastie Boys songs.
Heck yeah. Sabotage. We must keep the running
yeah.
count. It's not the last time we'll hear it.
So like the way they
No.
introduce Kirk as this kid, he's not just joyriding in this stolen car, his stepfather's stolen car, but he actually drives it off a cliff and like jumps out at the last second, right? And just wrecks the car. And it's
Yeah.
like, he's so over the top. Like everything about this movie is just like taken
Real
to an extreme
Kirk
degree.
was born in Iowa, Jacob.
Yeah.
This one,
Right.
under, you know, stress, extreme circumstances, pops out of his
He was
mom
born
in
in
space.
Yeah.
But Ray, you know, we get this little sequence where it's like, here he is down in Iowa. And do you think this Kirk, Space Kirk, is just going to be like a normal rule following kid? No, he's rowdy as hell.
He's a rebel.
Right. And he almost kills himself sliding off that thing. But remember, we had Space Kirk that was born on the USS Iowa once.
That's right.
That's right.
But we have a different
Shout
Space
out.
Kirk now. But yeah, he's a little shit. We meet him when he's a little bit older.
Yeah.
He's getting into bar fights like Picard
Getting in
used to.
Fights, yeah. Like
Yep.
the 3 opening scenes that we see of like these young characters. We see child Kirk, then we see young Spock getting in fights. Then we see
Getting
a
bullied.
little bit
Yeah.
older young Kirk also getting in fights. So, you know, kind of showing some connection there of like, oh, maybe these guys could be friends, you know, Spock and Kirk.
That's true. And so that's kind of what we're going to build to. These characters don't know each other. They're not at the place they were in the show, famously, right? So
No.
the point of this
Right.
movie is to get our characters in the position that longtime fans are familiar with. So that whole story here is how do we get them from in the academy to Kirk as the captain, Spock as the first officer, or her as on comm.
Right. So
How
it's
do we- how
essentially
do we
like a
get that?
long prequel setup to the
Yeah.
OG Trek that we know
Have
of.
we
Well, reimagining
seen a
it,
lot
yeah.
of
Yeah.
Vulcan in the past?
Oh yeah, we've seen plenty of Vulcan,
yeah.
especially in Enterprise. There's a lot of Vulcan stuff in
Yeah.
Enterprise that
Interesting.
Captain Archer gets into, which
I
is
really
poor
liked
Beagle.
the glimpse in this film, and seeing him in the weird teacher machine.
Right.
I like these hemisphere teaching machines and
that's
Vulcan.
kind of a
Vasquez
a bit of a
rocks.
reference to I think in Voyage Home, right at the beginning when he's answering those like questions from a computer. And he's like relearning his adult Spockness.
Of course.
Nice.
I love a Savick. I love seeing or Sarek or
Sarek,
whatever.
yeah.
Sarek.
Yep.
Sarek and his mother Amanda Grayson, played by Winona Ryder.
My God.
His human mother, so he's half human, half Vulcan, of course, very famously.
And this was a
let's
big
talk
deal,
about-
Jacob. This was like it hadn't been a minute, and this was kind of fresh off of the stealing stuff accusations, right? Remember when she was that even true that when she did shoplifting?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I
don't
think
know.
so.
I remember
done a
hearing
lot
about
worse
that.
shit than shoplift.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the news
She's just
cycle
doing it
People
for
were
the
like,
thrill.
Winona's back. She's Spock's mother, and I was like, that's weird. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. But you get that little conflicted, and they really play this up in Spock's character in this movie of his human side versus his Vulcan side, which of course has been explored in the OG series, even in Strange New Worlds now, where we get our third incarnation of
Love
Spock,
it.
Ethan Peck. But Zachary Quinto, I think he's a pretty good Spock. Like I said before, I think Ethan Peck has now surpassed him, in my opinion. But he's not a bad Spock.
Ethan
Do
Peck's
you agree
probably
with
had
that,
more
Mike?
time. Yeah. I was just saying he's had more time with the character because he played him on Discovery and stuff too.
Right.
So
That's so true.
He's been playing Spock longer, just time wise.
And of course, Zachary Quinto
really,
But I think
I
he's
was going
good.
to say, hasn't really had a movie career. Like, he's not really
No.
like a star.
And this
No,
was
but
his film debut. Obviously, his best known role at that point was in the show that I mentioned earlier, Heroes, a very late 2000s, like 2008, 2009 show. Like Lost, I was watching that every week, especially the early
A very
seasons.
2008 show.
Way
Yeah.
before the
A great
superhero
way to
boom, though.
describe
We
it.
have a whole show
Yes.
about that. But yeah, Siler, he steals everybody's powers. I
Siler.
thought he was a
Siler.
great villain.
Villain
He cut your head
Siler.
open. Yeah.
When
yeah.
are we going to do
Yeah.
our Heroes episode?
Maybe.
Time for a rewatch.
I
Hayden
rewatched it all.
Panettiere?
It's weird.
It sucks. It's fucking
Well, it's weird
terrible.
because that show was so
Season
popular
one's
at the
good.
time,
Yeah.
and now no one talks about it. Like, it's really people still, I feel like, be like talking about Lost and stuff, and like rewatch it sometimes.
But do you guys remember what both those shows fell folly to?
Yeah, the 2007 writer's strike.
Oh, yeah. And then we got a lot of reality TV.
Yeah, they ruined those shows, and
What's that similar to?
Right
and now we're currently living under a writer's
like
strike.
poetry.
Interesting.
But
Interesting.
shout out to the
Rebooting
writers.
that era.
Solidarity,
It's
of
a
course.
soft
Interesting. Well, this is
But-
is our lives 2023, Mike.
Yeah, we did this
Yeah.
like 16 years ago.
But the thing with Siler, the thing with Zachary Quinto,
Sure.
because he was so good as Siler, I can't help but see him as like a little bit villainous, even as Spock. Like, he just has a villainous
Yeah.
face to me, and I think you're up to something. You're up to no good. I can tell.
He's a little angrier, and this Spock is angrier, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
to a
He's
degree.
trying to
at
control
times.
his human emotions, but of course,
He gets
they come
bullied
up-
for it. I like that he gets accepted in the most prestigious Vulcan Academy, but they have to like neg him basically, and they're like,
Yeah.
despite your disadvantage, you've been accepted.
Which
And he's
is
like, what are you talking
Vulcan
about?
bullying.
Yeah,
They
so he's
nail-
like, no,
I think-
screw you. Yeah.
yeah.
But go
and I
ahead.
think they nailed the way the Vulcans, while being very polite and logical, will like passive aggressively like neg other species and stuff.
That's like
It's
an
pretty
Enterprise. They do that. Like you see a lot of
Yeah.
the way they talk down to humanity, like a backhanded
Totally.
compliment and stuff. Yeah.
funny. Yeah, so it nails that.
Funny.
And he says, I'm going to
Um,
Starfleet. I'm a rebel too, just like Kirk, right? So
Yeah, so maybe they have more in common than they think.
He will not be accepted into the Vulcan Science Academy. Is that correct?
yeah.
Yeah, so he goes to join Starfleet, and he's the first Vulcan to become a Starfleet officer, which is something from the
Incredible.
original, right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, what about
Is the Science
yeah.
Academy real? Is that from Enterprise?
I'm
What's that?
sure it's been established in Universal Science Academy. It's just like,
Yeah. Yeah, because when he
smartest
joined
place in the
Starfleet, it was a
universe.
big deal because, but other Vulcans looked down on him. And I think this is something they're exploring
I
in
didn't
Strange New
realize that.
Worlds, right? Because Vulcans look down on Starfleet as like, oh, that's for humans and other races. Like Vulcans don't need to lower ourselves to those standards to join Starfleet as an officer. They would rather, just work on Vulcan, which is why
Just be ambassadors.
Yeah, like T'Pol in Enterprise, she was not an official Starfleet member, so she was sub commander T'Pol, right? So she
Yeah,
was
that's
working
right.
for
Paul.
Yeah,
it's like an
I love all of
exchange
them.
student kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was just there. So the Vulcans had
Spock-
someone keeping an eye on the baby, stupid humans, basically.
Yeah, but so Spock broke a lot of ground by joining Starfleet, and he's a unique person, being half human, half Vulcan. So he's got to come to terms with that. But yeah, let's talk more about this cast. We got Chris Pine, we got Zachary Quinto,
We got Bones. I think we meet. He hates flying.
My
I
God.
may throw up on
Yes.
you.
What
I
a
think
scene.
he's
Bones.
great in this role. I really
Carl
like
Urban
Carl
is
Urban.
incredible. Love him as Bones. He really nails his orneriness in
I'll
from
be
the
honest
OG
with you.
series.
Everybody in this movie is incredibly well cast. This is the one where you go in and you're like, that doesn't make any sense, and then you watch it and you go, that's the best
That's
performance in
DeForest
the
Kelly.
whole movie.
Like,
That
I'm
is he's doing DeForest Kelly.
Yeah,
It's great.
It's
He's
really
great at it.
uncanny. So, yeah, he's a standout for me for sure.
And Zoe
And then-
Saldana, I think, is really
Zoe
good
Saldana.
as Uhura in this.
What do we think about her movie career, Mike? Because so often she plays a character who, of course, does not allow herself to appear. She gets sort of lost in the
She plays a
world
blue person
of
or
the
a green
films.
person in her
Mhm.
two most famous roles,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so what do you think about seeing her as a star, like as herself, Zoe Saldana as Uhura?
We need more of it. Like, she's low-key just been like a major part of the ensemble of billion-dollar franchises with Guardians and Avatar. Like, and they made a lot of money with these, so
Yeah.
it's like it's not, just her in the ensemble, but she's been involved with projects that clearly draw. Like, she definitely helps. And I think she should probably get more roles just as herself. I think she's really
It's
underrated.
so weird.
She's really
Yeah.
underrated. But maybe she just like,
She does
man,
a
I
lot
got
of
so many
sci-fi
residuals from Avatar though. Like,
franchises.
Yeah.
just
Oh
chill.
yeah, I'm sure she's doing all right. But yeah, I love her as Uhura. That's another character that we're getting a new incarnation of in Strange New Worlds, right? We have a new Kirk, new Spock, new Uhura, new Pike. We have a different Pike in this movie.
Pike.
We do.
Bruce
And again,
Greenwood.
he's good in this. He says punch it instead of hit it, right?
Punch it.
Right.
Hey, how are
So
you?
that implies a different universe for Strange New Worlds than this, because that's
I-
on its own.
I mainly
Right.
play presidents now. I'm Bruce Greenwood. How are you?
Yeah. Hair is
Oh.
not nearly as good as Anson Mount, but
No.
yeah,
he
we
doesn't
get
have the
Pike
Pike
here.
speak.
It's pretty good for a guy his age, though.
That's true. But he's giving Kirk
Yeah, he's
a
a
hard
little
time.
older in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a friend of. He knew Kirk's
I knew your
dad.
dad.
Keeping an
so
eye
he's
on
kind of a mentor
Jim.
role.
Hey, what are you doing?
And-
I knew your dad.
I kind of like this where it starts out, there's a different captain of the Enterprise. We got this young gun crew, and then we see by the end of the movie how they get into the positions that we know them in, right?
Yeah.
Which we guess is atypical.
Yeah.
We knew that's where it's going to end up, but I think they do an interesting job of getting there. So the overarching plot, obviously, to kind of get that set up here, and we can jump, though, in the very opening of the movie, the Narada, the Romulan ship piloted by Nero, Eric Bana, which I think he's not any worse than Chang. What the fuck did Chang do? He's just as good.
Yes. And
I
when
guess
we were
so.
kind of
As a
talking about
mediocre
this,
Star Trek villain, yeah.
when did we see a Romulan villain again? Oh, I guess Nemesis. We just did, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shinzon. Yeah, he's no Shinzon,
Shit,
okay,
my-
first of all.
No.
Guys, how dare you? I had
No
thrown
Shinzon.
that away. I had evacuated that from my mind.
No, you
Just
can
let
never
it be.
forget.
We had
Out the
fun with it
airlock.
on that episode. And for you to dare to say the word Shinzon to me right now.
Well, here's the thing. Nero, I said I like the casting. I like the casting of the crew members. I like Eric Bana fine, but I do find Nero to be somewhat of a weak villain. His motivation is just, straight revenge. It's not anything deeper than that. Like, he's just wants
He kind of
revenge.
just throws his trident twice, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, he's just
and,
kind of a
jumps
bad guy. Yeah, but he doesn't have a lot of depth to him. Right.
No, like they could have done more. Like I get the backstory of like, oh, we were like, I'm a miner and I had a wife and kids and we were out doing space mining and the planet blew up and I'm all pissed off about it. And
you know how it is.
Yeah.
And he blamed Spock, but it's kind of confusing why, because Spock was trying to save Romulus but just failed, I guess. And so then,
he blames
Nero
Spock
just blames
for not
Spock.
getting there on time.
So he goes back in the past to destroy.
Well, sorry,
Spock's
real quick. I just want to
yeah.
say I don't want to get lost inside of my kind of overall coldness on Eric Bana. The red matter of it all. Red matter looks dope. It's awesome to say. It's super cool in this movie. The aesthetic of it is baller.
The way it blows away
love
from the needle.
this shit. Yes.
Yeah,
all of
it is pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah,
creating
it's
a
like dark
singularity
matter,
inside of something.
red.
Yeah, I'm into it. So that's what they do.
Something so big for his ship is really cool too.
Yeah, so they wanted the stars exploding, so the red matter was supposed to create a singularity and absorb the exploding star, thus saving Romulus. He didn't make it in time, but the red matter detonated. They both get sucked into the black hole and shot out into the past. But Nero was out there 25 years earlier. Spock showed up 25 years later. It was seconds for him, blah, blah, blah. But Nero gets there. He has to wait 25 years for him. So that's who kills
George
Kirk's dad when they come out of the black hole. Yeah.
The destruction of Romulus. This is the thing. So this is why, of course, this film series still fits under the canon of Star Trek, because in the future, and this is post TNG time, Romulus is destroyed. Leonard Nimoy Spock goes back in time. He also appeared in TNG as Ambassador Spock, of course, so that's kind of continuing that role. In current day, like Picard, in the Picard series, Romulus has been destroyed. So that did happen like in the prime Star Trek timeline, right? But in this timeline, Romulus still exists, but he goes back in time and destroys Vulcan. So it's like either Vulcan is going to get destroyed or Romulus in different
I don't like either of those.
Right. So that's his big revenge plot. He's like, all right, we're going to go to Vulcan and blow it up. On the way, he does something at a Klingon prison planet. This is told in background. Uhura is like, oh, I picked up a transmission. We get Kirk hiding under the bed, which, let me say, I generally think this movie's pretty good. I'll expand on that. But what I don't like is like the 2009 National Lampoon, like Awooga, Kirk, like
well, this is what I'm saying. So
every girl and
Kirk loves to fuck Mike.
Yeah,
everything about this movie is the most over top. In a lot of ways, I feel like it's the Michael Bay Transformers of Star Trek, where it's not, it's a little more restrained in some ways than Transformers, but the scantily clad actors in the movie and that kind of thing is definitely a part of that, I think.
Like Uhura has to get changed during her exposition scene. That's a little not great. He gets pushed into her Flash and Diana style, Josh Whedon cut. It's like awkward. Ooh, boopers.
And like, I'm just gonna get changed in front of my roommate. We just do this all the time, right? We just strip down to our underwear in front of each other.
Yeah. So
a little bit of that green-skinned roommate at the beginning. Yeah,
but once we're out of there, because we learn, there's a distress call in Vulcan. Once we get on the ship and we're doing the thing and we're just running to the stations, like then I think it's fine. Just the beginning is a little kind of.
I don't mind it though because it fits into the whole like, just everything about this movie. I just feel like is over the top. Like it's just fucking action, sex, fast paced. Like
right, it's of its time.
I like pretty much everything up until basically they get on the Enterprise. And then I'm like, this movie's pretty good. But all the stuff before it, I'm super into. And Jacob, what I was noticing this time, because you said you were feeling a different way about this movie now, having seen all the original classic movies. My kind of take this time was a film I used to be super, super, super positive on in this whole series. And I'll expand on that as we go through the series as well. Now I'm kind of like, oh, it's not exactly how I remember my good friends. And I kind of don't like seeing them pimped out to the max like this. Right. And it is the most. This movie is, the word it goes with is complicated. Like the first shot is like, you think it's easy to see those models of those ships on that old show in movies? Guess what? We don't have any of that. We have Transformers, like you're saying, special effects of moving through the title cards or the old X-Men title cards where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and you're seeing everything in the most complicated way you can, and the way characters act, taking off their clothes, and like the way Kirk is acting and stuff. It is like the most complicated versions of those characters, basically.
Yeah,
It's
I think
maximalist.
Yes,
it's not for
very
everyone. You know,
maximalist.
A lot of Star Trek fans probably going into it kind of had a system shock where they're like, "This is not Star
I'm
Trek
sure.
to me." Like my Star Trek is like a bunch of 50-year-old people standing around a bridge at their various stations and like going back in time, saving whales and stuff.
Their favorite Star Trek movie is two guys looking at each other on TVs quoting like Moby Dick. That's their favorite one.
Their favorite Star Trek movie is Fast and the Furious. Like they just like they're not even hiding it.
Well, that's what the second one's going to be, maybe.
Yes.
Well, that's the argument of like why, you know, some Trekkies or Trekkers, whatever they prefer to be called, hated this movie when it came out because it just goes against everything that like Star Trek was about. Like, oh, we're about like, you know, calmly stating diplomacy and stuff before action. And this movie's just like all action all the time. If there's not something crazy happening on screen like every
blowing up
5 seconds, like we're failing as a movie.
You know what really captures it? You can take a beautiful sequence like the intro and push it a little too far where you get that split second cut of Chris Hemsworth flying forward as he does crash where you're like, oh, he is gonna die. Like I did understand that, but like you were doing it so elegant and beautifully, like, but instead you had to like push it to the max again.
It's very visceral. But yeah, I think the setup is great, setting up who these characters are with very, you know, limited screen time. I think it's very good economy of storytelling.
Yeah, I agree. And even though like the trappings are a little extreme, right? Oh, I'm getting changed, or what? We're in a bar fight, right? But like it hits the beats of a Star Trek plot where Uhura's like, oh, I received a transmission from a Klingon planet. Hold on, we got some other shit to do. And then it comes up later. Oh, it turns out that's a plot point. You know, like that is
they're
some
slowly
classic Trek
writing. Yeah, I love that too, where they're slowly giving you the clues. And Kirk doesn't figure it out until he hears like lightning storm on the ship and stuff.
Lightning storm.
That happened
I was born.
Unruly. Yeah. So Kirk's this unruly guy living in Iowa, kind of a dead end life. Bruce Greenwood, you know, Captain Pike says, "Hey, come on, join Starfleet. You know you want to."
You ever thought about space? You ever thought about space? It's up there. Oh.
Your dad was captain of a starship for 8 minutes. He saved 600 lives and blah, 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 blah. I dare you to do better. Like, that's a good speech, too. Like, in 8 minutes, that's what your dad did. And if you're half the man that he is, we could use you. I'm like, all right.
God damn.
That works. That works.
I love it.
So he shows up, you know, he goes to Starfleet, right?
Yeah. He joins the academy as a cadet.
Famous Kobayashi Maru.
Yeah, so we get the Kobayashi Maru scene, a reference to, of course, the Wrath of Khan, Kobayashi Maru. And I like this. It's a very small detail, but he's eating an apple in that scene. And in Wrath of Khan, he's eating an apple on the Genesis planet when he's telling Saavik about it.
Oh, man. Because I hated the apple choice. But you're right. Okay, it's fine.
That's so
I thought it was the most awkward thing,
but
it's a reference.
I truly was just like, this is such a great choice. I'm into it, man. I told you all
he
this
just brought that apple to eat while he's doing it.
Yeah.
So, of course, we see the story that we're told in Wrath of Khan of Kirk doesn't believe in no-win scenarios. The whole point of the Kobayashi Maru is that it can't be beat.
I cheated.
Mm-hmm.
So he cheats and gets around it because he doesn't believe in no-win situations. Right?
I don't believe in no-win situation.
That's right.
So we see that in action.
But yeah.
And then we see, of course, that Spock designed the test, right? And so here we're seeing Spock meeting Kirk for the first time. Right.
As an adversary, because he's saying, you cheated on this exam that I've been in charge of. I'm one of the smartest people here. Everybody loves me. Kirk, I'm calling you out. You know, Kirk's like, I can face my accuser. So they're at odds here.
Yeah.
But that
so having this little trial
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Coincidentally, there's a distress call. They all have to get on the Enterprise. And the distress call from Vulcan. But of course, you know, Kirk is under academic probation or whatever, so he can't get on the Enterprise. So Bones has to concoct this whole thing where he inoculates him with this rare disease so that he can get on board and everything.
Space
and he has an allergic reaction to that. Yeah. How do you feel about this little sequence of
Look at it, Jim.
It's kind of there's a lot of wacky hijinks where he's running around. He keeps giving him different shots, and he keeps getting
If
different like
Bones
symptoms and
is
stuff.
in a scene,
Mhm.
it should be wacky. I think there's good tonal
Yeah.
balancing here. They know
Are you out of
when
your
their
Vulcan
characters
mind?
should be used the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
Love
Yeah.
it.
No, and the whole scenario, because Kirk, it finally it clicks with him when he's trying to ask Uhura what was the transmission. So he's trying to
Yes.
it's like as his hands are big and he can't speak. Like there is an honest desperation where he's like, everybody's gonna get fucked if they go to the distress
Yes.
call. It's a trap, and he just wants to. The desperation is real, right? So
Love it.
I'm here for it.
So he
Real
does go to the
quick,
bridge.
introduction, just let's go back to casting real quick and characters.
Right.
The person who is the ensign, I believe, giving them the information over the intercom saying, this is our mission, we're going to Vulcan, it is peacekeeping, we're going to investigate these tremors, evacuation if possible, is our beloved Pavel Chekhov, which is Anton Yelchin, a Ukrainian born actor, I believe,
R.I.P.
who
Yeah.
was just
Rest in
we
peace.
truly, let's just give him 5 minutes because he
Yeah.
was a little sweetie. He was like the coolest. He seemed like such a great guy. I love this guy. I kind of thought he was going to be our generation's De Niro, where he was just like a great leading man everyone was going to use.
Yeah.
And then listeners, if you're not familiar with it, it was a horrific auto accident, sort of self-inflicted through this awful
Really a freak
manufacturing.
accident. Yeah.
Yes,
We
like,
got ran over by his own car
Yeah.
while
Like-
it was in park or something. Like the parking brake
Jesus
failed.
Christ. Like you
Yeah.
can't even imagine. Just absolutely horrifying. And
Yeah.
he is in all three of these films, and spoiler alert, has a pretty big part in the third one, and that is when it occurred. Well, I guess continue talking about it. For the press tour of that was pretty much all of them being like, we are horrified. This is horrific.
Yeah.
Sure.
But he's someone who's in this whole franchise. That's so weird to me too, that he's, there's not just one where they have to be like, and remember everybody, R.I.P. Chekhov.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
there's a documentary about him that came out somewhat recently that's kind of talking about his life. He seems like a really cool and interesting guy. So very sad, but he's great as Chekhov. He's doing the accent and everything.
Yes. Did you love
Yeah,
him
love
in
it.
anything else? The vampire movie, Goddamn Fright Night, the remake. I love the original, but the remake in particular is just so incredible, and I think he's just so great in that.
He's great in everything I've seen. Green Room. He was good in that movie. That's a
And
movie
just-
where he has
that's an
to.
incredible movie.
Yeah, he's in a band. They do
Star
a gig
Trek.
at a Nazi.
Now,
Like,
who
establishment has,
plays the Nazi? Now, Mike just said Star Trek. Who plays the
That's
Nazi,
right.
Jacob?
Our favorite one, Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick
My
Stewart,
God.
going against type, playing a very bad guy role.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a really fun horror movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, really sad.
Yeah.
And if
Alpha
they do
Dog's
make
a
another
new
one of
song.
these, they're not going to be able to have Chekhov. So
Ugh.
it's a real bummer.
Yeah, and he does a great job with this. And they give him Chekhov, the character, throughout these three movies, a lot more to do than
Yes.
original Chekhov ever did.
Yeah, I would say all of the characters outside of the
Yes.
big three of the OG, Kirk, Spock, and Bones.
Yeah. Hikaru Sulu
Uhura
gets some
gets
stuff
more.
to do
Sulu,
here. His
Yeah,
sword
Sulu-
fighting from Naked Time or whatever is,
yes,
you know,
from that
brought
one
up.
episode where Sulu sword fights, they expand on that to make him a
Guys.
fencing master, which I love.
Yep. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
funny.
Guys, John Cho, we'll get to him. It's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's piloting the ship. It's his first day. It seems like everyone's it's Enterprise's maiden voyage, right? Like Enterprise was just finished construction. So that's a big thing too, where Captain Pike's like, sorry, our maiden voyage is a little different than we expected, but we'll just have to celebrate it like when we get the job done, right?
Yep.
So they're brand new ship, brand new crew, heading out to go save Vulcan.
Right. So let's kind of explain who's on the bridge. How do we get our people where they need to be? Because Spock is the first officer here. Uhura's mad at Spock initially because she should be on the Enterprise because she's so good. We'll find out later the reason why he didn't assign her. But
Right.
he gets her
Well-
switched to the Enterprise.
Yeah. I was going to say a big change of this movie that you kind of have to go along with too is that Spock and Uhura are in a relationship.
Right.
Right.
It's a big departure from the OG series where they weren't.
Yes.
There was no relationships between the crew, but it's kind of a red herring at first because you see Kirk kind of like hitting on her and stuff. You think, oh, they're setting up a romance down the line, but no, she's just in a relationship with Spock now.
Yeah, and of course the famous episode of the kiss between Kirk and
her. Yeah. But there's a running joke of Kirk trying to get her first name the whole movie, and then that kind of pays off nicely at a big emotional moment.
Is this the first time? Was Nyota ever used in the original series?
Nyota, it was used in novels and stuff that weren't considered canon, so like expanded lore novels and stuff, where it was first used, and then first stated in like a movie or a TV series is this movie.
She is Nyota in Strange New Worlds, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But since you think about, Strange New Worlds, obviously those characters, that Spock and that Uhura are not in a relationship in that show.
No. Yeah.
No. They're nursing
all these
another
characters
relationship.
are so special to me. Yes.
Speaking of Strange New Worlds, too, there's a moment where
I love it, Mike.
There is a reference to a nurse chapel in this movie.
Correct.
Oh, is there really?
Yeah.
Bones says it? Does he?
Bones
I
says
missed
something
it.
like, yeah, there's a nurse chapel shout
out.
Nurse chapel. I'm gonna need to think. It's
Jennifer
just a voice
Lawrence,
off screen.
Go back in
but
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's fun.
But I like how they get people in the position they need to be. Like, we have a communications officer, and, Nyota's just like an ensign or whatever, a cadet. She's a cadet. But the person they have on the bridge doesn't know the difference between Romulan and Vulcan because they're sharing ancestors. So that's like, well,
so
shit, do you know it?
Over.
I do. Okay, so you need to be in this position. So there's a little bit of shuffling happening. Like, John Cho wasn't supposed to be there. The other guy was sick or something.
That's right. Yeah. Sulu's not even supposed to be piloting that day, Mike. Yeah. That's so great.
Forgot to take off the parking brake. So there's a little bit of stuff, but it works for the story. Like, how do we get her? Oh, this guy doesn't know the difference between Romulan and Vulcan. That's a very Star Trek detail, and I like it. Yep. And then with the, this is my patient, Bones gets, Kirk aboard.
Yep.
And that's kind of how we do
stowaway. The way Kirk goes from stowaway to
first officer,
acting captain to acting, first officer to stranded to acting captain to captain by the end of it is pretty wild. But
he goes from stowaway, academic expulsion to stowaway to first officer to stranded back to acting captain by way of technicality, and then all the way to you're a captain now. It's quite a journey he goes on in this movie.
He tricks Spock into eliciting emotional response, and therefore, saying I'm too emotional to be captain, and then he takes over as captain,
having been first officer for 12 hours.
Pretty thin, but
nobody questions it. But
but jumping ahead a little bit, but let's.
He sprints up there. He's recovering, and he wants to say it's a trap, and he's breaking all the bridge protocol. Nobody's happy to see him. Spock's like, "What are you doing here?" Pike's like, "What are you doing here?" Uhura's like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "I don't give a shit. You can't go there." They're trying to get him to do protocol, and he will not.
He's trying to look out for the crew.
Mm-hmm.
So Bruce Greenwood Pike is considering this. Eventually,
Uhura corroborates his story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're like about to warp. They're about to reach Vulcan. So they reach Vulcan, and they warp right into a battlefield. It's just chaos everywhere, like broken ships.
He says, "Red alert! Before we get out of warp, red alert. Get ready!" Right? And then it's a nightmare. Everybody's getting destroyed, and the Narada is so cool, and I think it's too big. Like, if it's a mining ship, did they? I don't know, but whatever. It's a movie.
I said I like how big it is going through the portal because it is crazy that it's like, damn, that portal is fucking huge, especially when you see Spock's tiny little ship. But I do agree with you that it is too big.
It makes the Shrike look reasonable.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's cool when it comes out of the black hole. It's just all these.
Yes, that's the visual of that is so cool, and it looks like a space whale. It's awesome.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah, it is kind of neat. So they're getting destroyed basically, though.
This is
the drill.
So
this is the drill.
They have the drill, right? The
piece,
mining drill down into Vulcan. They're drilling a hole into the center of the planet.
They do the same thing. Hey, we'll blow you up. Come over here in a shuttle. All right. And so Pike's like, okay. Yeah.
Well, Kirk and Sulu take some iconic-looking colors for their flight suits, but they are joined by a man in red who does seem doomed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he's like, I'm so psyched to kick some Romulan ass, right? And Kirk's like, yeah, sure, buddy.
Absolutely, my man.
He reminds me of Malcolm from Enterprise. He's like, I just love shooting phasers, and I want to shoot everything. He's like so gung-ho, and their security officer is just really always like so hyped to blow shit up.
Sometimes the way these guys talk about Enterprise, I'm into it. Other times I'm like, never. Like, not even like a chance.
No, you'd be into it.
And there is, of
I
course,
don't know.
speaking of Enterprise, we'll get to it. There's a shout out to something from Enterprise.
Yes, but classic
The
red
ship
shirt.
called the Enterprise.
yes, you nailed it.
Shout out to a lot of Star Trek stuff.
Right.
I do like when Pike says though, like, all right, we need people who can do hand to hand, and like Sulu says, I'm a
Yes.
fencer, and then he's like, Kirk, you're coming to. You're not even supposed to be here. Like, just you're putting your life on the line right now.
Yes.
Fuck off, right?
And Kirk's like, hell yeah, I'm ready to jump out of this.
I
So
need
what
a
they're doing is they're doing
badass.
this skydiving mission where they're going to skydive down to this platform on the drill, set some charges, blow up the drill because the drill is stopping their transporter.
Yep, classic Star Trek.
Functions. Yeah,
Yep.
so they need to break it so they
from
can.
the drill.
Yeah, so they do this sick.
Picking up interference, Commander or Captain.
Yeah, the sick skydiving.
Commander's
stuff,
Galaxy
right?
Quest. Yes. you're
Yeah.
right.
And again, the way they handle space and the action and the scale in this movie is really good. Like, I like when they go to warp and the camera does shake. I like the scale of seeing how small the Enterprise is compared to Narada and how far they're traveling in this skydiving sequence to even when they go out the airlock. There's no sound.
You know what it
like that stuff
feels
is
like,
cool too.
Mike? It feels a lot like this thing called Mission Impossible.
Oh my God. You're right.
Yeah.
Well, shit. Okay. 100%.
Well, you mentioned the scale. Like, I was going to say that too. Like, one thing I love about this movie that it really gets right is the scale of these ships and stuff. Where you see the Enterprise, it's fucking huge. Like, thousands of people work on it to like keep it running.
Yep.
And like I really think this movie nails that sense of scale when you see it, being worked on. When you see it for the first time and stuff, it gets that ship porn aspect of that like people loved, even in
I like the design.
the
Do you like
motion
guys-
picture.
Do you like this design?
Yes, I do like the design. It feels like a fresh kind of modern redo, but still kind of referencing the old stuff.
Carrying
as
a lot of those design elements, while updating it. Yeah.
When we saw the Kelvin prior in the opening scene, and it had the sort of up and down vertical engines, ion engines, or whatever you call those, is that how all? Oh, interesting. Is that how
believe
all
they're
the
called
ships
nacelles.
were until the Enterprise? Is the
That's a
Enterprise the
different
first
class.
sort of?
There's different
Oh,
classes. So
okay.
they have different layouts for different classes, right? So Enterprise is a Constellation class. There's like a million different ones, right?
What is Lower Decks? They're California classes, but what is the ship called, Mike? Do you remember?
Oh no.
The
what is it
USS.
called?
What? It's like the Van Nuys, or it is like a. It is a place in It's like Sacramento or something, right? It's in
sure.
California.
I'm looking it up. It is the Cerritos. Yeah, Cerritos.
The
Yes, Cerritos Auto Square.
Auto
Yes,
Square,
Cerrito
of
Auto
course.
Square,
The
yeah.
USS Cerritos.
We're locating
That's
I
ourselves.
like that class.
The Kelvin is an
California
Einstein
class is my
class,
favorite.
by the way.
Okay.
An Einstein class.
That's what I'm seeing here. So,
Sure, Kelvin. That makes sense.
yeah, science. But
Yeah, they really nail that sense of scale and the sense
Absolutely.
of the size of, how many people it takes to run one of these ships. Like, you only see the bridge crew normally, but like there's like
Yes.
these huge engine rooms and stuff it's just like all this machinery and stuff to keep it running.
Like, no joke, is probably the best space action we've seen in any Star Trek media, including like Deep Space Nine Dominion War. Like, this is really well done, even considering it's all on a computer.
They also had
I like it.
the budget of this movie. This was the highest budget Star Trek movie ever made at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And even compared to Nemesis, I think Nemesis, the budget was like 60 million. The budget for this was 150 million. So they're really like putting everything into it. We're like, we want a blockbuster. We want a fresh hit. So
Right.
the difference in budget kind of shows in the effects too.
Right. But I think tonally, this is even, it's still like, it influenced all modern Trek too, the way they do space action. It all kind of looks like this now. Even the stuff in Strange New Worlds flying through the asteroids and stuff. It's like, damn, that does feel like a flavor from this Abrams series that's kind of maintained with their
I think that's
way they
one
treat
thing
CG.
Abrams is really good at, like shooting action. And I think that with Mission Impossible 3, I saw that. And then with this movie, like, I may not love him as a director all the time, but he really knows how to shoot an action scene.
Oh, I think the train crash sequence is probably the only memorable sequence from Super 8.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So of course, we get this sick skydive. They land on the platform. Obviously, red shirt guy, he didn't make it.
Why? What happens? Why?
He had the charges too.
Why would a red shirt guy die? That doesn't make sense.
Right. But I love that they give us the classic red shirt death, from the
I
original
love it.
series. But also the way it happens. He doesn't pull his chute. His chute goes under the beam, and he just gets sucked into it's so like.
And Kirk's
All
like,
because
pull
he's
your
too
chute.
gung-ho.
Like,
He's like having
Yeah.
a great time. He's like, nah, I can wait a little longer.
Then he just gets pulled into this drilling beam and disintegrated. It's so brutal. Like,
not
yep,
how I want to go.
that's a red shirt for you. This fight is kind of whatever though. Like with you got to do it. But the fight with the Romulans, destroy the laser. We destroy the laser. I don't love the fight, but I do.
But
like
I love
the
when
skydiving.
Sulu pulls out his sword and it's like a fold-out sword that
Origami.
extends. Like that's.
But then the
very cool.
Romulan has a fold-out axe, and I'm like, does everything have to fold? Eric Bana's got a fold-out spear. I'm like, come on, all right, one thing folds.
Yeah.
folding
yeah.
out.
Yeah, the origami.
We're getting
Future.
Bloodborne out here,
Yeah,
Weapon
yeah.
style changes.
The threaded cane is what Sulu's rocking.
That threaded cane.
But they destroy the drill, however, not before it reaches the planet's core, right? And Eric Bana launches the red matter, and thus the chain reaction, the singularity begins, and we're forced to witness the destruction of Vulcan. And time is ticking. How many people can we get out of there? Zachary Quinto's family's down there. Spock knows his family's down there. Shit, we didn't do it. So now
We get
that's the
something
panic.
that frustrated me even in the theaters, which was like, just stand still, you morons. Just get transported away. I get so angry. I understand it's the narrative choice for Winona's writer character to be like, oh, I was almost taken, but just another second. But it makes you
The
feel
Rock.
so angry.
Well,
Like,
they
just
have to
another
run
second.
outside of that temple, right? So that they can be transported or something.
Yeah. That guy gets crushed by a statue. But yeah, they're trying to save the Vulcan High Council, essentially.
Vulcan elders.
The elders and Spock's mom. Unfortunately, his mom doesn't make it because a rock fell under her foot. Dang, bummer. So Spock loses his mother. We do have a cool scene where Chekhov saves Kirk and Sulu, like beaming. I can do that. I can do that. Like I like that.
Yeah, they're
thing.
falling. He has to beam them as they're falling.
Yeah, trying to get a lock. They made that very exciting. And so again, it's something for him to do.
What do you guys think about this repercussion wise, as you two are my biggest Trekkie fans, of the fact that like there is just so much of the lore and history is tied to the Vulcans are the first ever aliens you see. Then lore wise, you find out they invented first contact. In Enterprise, you see their weird relationships with Earthlings and humans. To now you're seeing like, well, in this timeline, we wipe the board clean. No Vulcans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're an
10,000.
endangered species. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. It's a big change made for this movie, and even the decision to destroy Romulus in the Prime timeline has also had huge repercussions, on the future of Trek with Picard and everything. So the fact that they destroy the planet Vulcan in this timeline is pretty nuts.
Yeah. It's wild. And then also now once Vulcan's destroyed, the next part of the plan is to destroy Earth. So he's the reason he kidnaps Pike and keeps him around is he gives him a little Wrath of Khan worm.
Yep,
Tell him
he
what the
100%
codes are.
does.
So that's our second
That's
Wrath
right.
of Khan reference.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah.
And so Spock is now captain because Pike's gone. Spock is.
So Spock was first officer. He became acting captain.
Well, first officer, more like petty officer, because his first command as a little bitch is, you know what, Kirk, F you, you're out.
Well,
of
him and
here,
Kirk
you're
have
done.
different. Yeah.
Yes.
So Kirk wants to go after near a ship, whereas Spock wants to rendezvous with the rest of Starfleet and regroup. And Kirk's like, no, we gotta stop him. He's going for Earth. Like, we don't have time for this. Spock's like, I don't want to hear it. Fucking get this guy out of here. Go strand him on this random planet that's next to Vulcan.
Which this is where I have a little bit of issues with the plotting. Like, there's a lot of coincidence happening here too. But
sure.
Definitely a lot of
like, we're gonna mutiny you on a random planet that happens to be a planet that has happened to have Spock chilling there, surprise, right? And that
I kind of thought that too, but it makes sense because, I mean, the fact that they both were on the same part of the planet and they met like that is pretty
Pretty
small
wild.
chances, but
yeah, and then he gets saved
Nero
from
did
a
put
creature. Yeah.
Yeah, but Nero put Spock on that planet specifically so that he could watch Vulcan
Right.
be destroyed, right? And have a good view of it.
So
I guess it makes
really
sense
lucky.
that planet is just next to Vulcan.
The closest, the nearest.
Yeah.
And doesn't Leonard Nimoy, let's give him some love and credit right here,
we-
doesn't he have some line of like, most peculiar that our fates are intertwining, like sort of like setting up like life is weird or whatever. You're like,
Yeah.
I think he maybe says that when we meet Scotty, but we'll talk about that too.
Yeah.
But this
fair
whole
enough.
movie, I mean, does rely a lot on coincidence or just things, just like characters running into each other. Like even Uhura, Kirk and Uhura meeting in this bar, and then 3 years later, he's like with her roommate in her room and stuff. It's just like there's a lot of people in Starfleet. Like, how do these people keep running into each other?
He wants to meet her. He looked up Uhura.
Yeah. Found a roommate, hit on her
Yeah.
instead.
Banged her.
Classic
Yeah.
play.
A long con.
Got tricked by the idea that he must have sex
Look.
as a sex addict.
Look, she said, maybe not interested 3 years ago, but he doesn't believe in no-win scenarios. So,
That's right.
That's right, Mike.
It's a long con.
That is right. But my dating strategy, the Kobayashi Maru.
Yeah, it is a no-win scenario. That's how I look at it. But Kirk,
Absolutely.
he'll change the condition of the test. But this part I don't like as much. Yeah, this is where we start to drag a little bit.
But
We
so
have to
let's
contrive
say,
it so that he runs into Prime Spock.
Prime Spock, and we get a big
Prime
exposition
Spock.
here.
Spock Prime. Yeah.
Prime Spock, he sets it all up.
Spocktimus
The
Prime.
whole point of this movie,
Mhm.
Spocktimus Prime. It wasn't
primal.
a Transformer movie that we covered.
That's right.
He was also
same
Galvatron.
writers.
He was in Dude. That's right. You're absolutely right. Look,
It's all
That'll come up
connected.
later.
let's throw him some love and some credit. Because Jacob, you were
Yes.
like, he's appeared on TNG and all this stuff. Yes. Guys, once again, listeners, if you haven't listened to our other ones of these, or maybe you're like binging them all or whatever, which is what I hope you're doing in order or whatever, or maybe you are following along and taking the gaps and you forget, Leonard Nimoy's relationship to this was writing a book called I Am Not Spock and wanting to be done. Writing
Right.
another book that said I am Spock,
I am
wanting
Spock.
to come back.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wanting to star in a movie only if they will kill Spock. Wanting to make another movie only if they'll let him direct it. Deciding in that movie, you know who should come back? Spock. He's a great character. I love Spock.
Right.
He
Yeah.
is someone who then continued to direct them at a certain point. Jacob, you were like Generations, all this other stuff. You brought up these other opportunities he's had where he's like, no, we did the thing where we signed the screen. That will be the end of it for Leonard Nimoy. Goodbye.
Yeah. If
Mhm.
you remember with Generations, they of course wanted to bring back Spock and Bones. Instead, they got Chekhov and Scotty, right?
Yeah.
A fair trade. But to
Yes.
get him now, where you build sort of the entire concept of the film around, hey, you know who the face of Star Trek is, who we should have in our Star Trek movie? That hobgoblin named Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
not this William
Again.
Shatner guy.
It's not the lead. It's that quote I gave when we were doing our first episode where I said to my dad, who was your favorite character when you watched it as a kid? And he said, I felt the most connection to Kirk, but everyone who watched that thing knew the best character was named Dr. Spock, and that he was the breakout character, that he stood out more than anything. So to see him in this thing, I love it, guys.
Yes.
I love the idea of this movie, the concept of this movie, and to have him literally say things like, this is weird. That's not the Star Trek I remember, but Star Trek's great. Have a good adventure.
True.
Goodbye. It's
True.
Yeah.
Wow.
Also, to
That
go
is
back
great.
to the very beginning of Star Trek, the original pilot of the OG series, he's the only character that they bring back. So this is when they had Captain Pike, and it's interesting now watching Strange New Worlds, of course, because it's kind of recontextualizing that. But the
Mhm.
original pilot of Star Trek was featuring a Captain Pike. It had Una, the first officer, played by Majel Barrett, who was Roddenberry's wife,
Mhm.
who also played Nurse Chapel. But
Yes.
and Spock was the, I think, second officer at that time. And they're like, okay, recast the captain. We don't like this guy or whatever. Keep that guy, the pointy-eared guy. We like him.
None of this worked.
Yeah.
Who is that?
Yeah.
We like
Who
the
is
space
that
elf guy. Yeah.
He is Legolas in space is incredible. We are
Mhm.
keeping that.
He
Yeah.
does this thing with his eyebrow. It's great. Yeah. But that is cool. Fascinating. I did love seeing this, especially after rewatching those movies when he says, how do you know me? He's like, I have and always will be your friend. I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
Third
Mike.
reference. But it makes you remember, like, this is that Spock. This reminds me of those movies and those relationships, and it's just like great to see him, and it's a good way for him to be like, you mean you're not the captain of the Enterprise? It's like, no, you are.
Right.
You hate me. Like, I like this whole conversation here. Like, that's cool.
When
It is
he
good,
says
and-
the thing about, but your relationship with your father, like he's like hurt by it. You're like, oh no, this is like so scary
what
and wrong. I
inspired you.
hate this. Yes.
Yeah.
Your father
Kirk
meant
asks
everything
about
to
his
you.
dad, right? Is my dad
Mhm.
alive in the other timeline? And he says, yeah, he lived to see you become captain of the Enterprise. So that's
He
great.
said he was your constant source of inspiration. Oh.
Yep.
I don't think Shatner Kirk ever mentioned his dad in any of those movies, but that's okay. I mean, they talk about his son.
Yeah, I was gonna say he never mentioned his son or ex-wife either, so I'm not too worried about what he
Yeah.
talks about, Jacob.
But yeah, I love Leonard Nimoy being in this. It kind of ties it all together, and it gives it sort of a legitimacy. This movie of yes, this is a Star Trek movie. We have
Yes.
Leonard Nimoy connecting it all together.
Yep.
Funny fact about Shatner. Obviously, they did kind of want him to. So they reached out to Shatner, and in the end when Nimoy does the these are space,
Yeah.
the final
These
frontier,
are the
that whole
voyages, yeah.
speech. They wanted to have Shatner they would kind of do alternating lines or something. And Shatner was like, no, I want like the same amount of role that Nimoy has, or I'm not.
Thank
doing
God
it.
he said no, because that would have been a stupid
Yeah.
thing to
But
throw
he
in for no
is-
reason.
Right.
Dead by this point.
That's what they say. Well, you died in Generations. And so I was reading, making my quiz earlier. We'll get to it, Normies. Don't
Oh, yeah.
worry.
Oh boy.
But Shatner, so they're like, yeah, you died in Generations. We can't bring you back. He's like, well, I wrote this series of novels where I resurrected Kirk. Maybe you could make those canon and bring me back. And they're like,
We were just kind
sorry,
of
it's not
letting you
going to
have
work.
busy work. You were letting you play in the corner,
You
Yeah.
chose to star in the movie where you die. You said it was acceptable to do that. You need to
Yeah.
be done.
Mm-hmm.
I just love the fact that William Shatner wrote novels where he resurrected Captain Kirk.
On brand.
Amazing.
It would
Amazing.
100% be in my will to shoot me at the Genesis planet. I don't care. I'm shameless about it. Bring me back to life immediately.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
But
It is great
the
to see
Nimoy
this.
cameo works. Yeah.
Yeah, and he explains, okay, yeah, I tried to save. We get the whole backstory. I tried to save Romulus. Didn't get there in time. I had the super advanced ship, Red Matter. That was our
What
thing.
do you think of the ship, Mike?
It's fucking cool. It's like whipping around like a gyro. I like the design of it a lot. It's neat,
It's like a personal spacecraft. It's like a one-person
Yeah.
ship.
Mhm.
And keep in mind, this is like post
be logical.
TNG tech, so it's a little more high tech than what we have.
Yeah.
With the Enterprise.
Yeah, we'll just send him out on this thing, save the thing. He doesn't. So when Nero captures him, now he has the red matter and he strands Spock there to watch his planet blow up. And that's kind of what happened to him. So they're like, all right, Starfleet outpost, let's go there and see if we can talk to Starfleet. I don't know. Fuck it, So that's...
Who could be manning this outpost?
Yeah, when I first watched the movie, I totally had forgotten about one Montgomery Scott. And then when this scene happens, I'm like, okay,
Oh,
I like
yeah.
this a lot. So another cast
Simon
member.
Pegg.
Yep.
That's right.
Mission Impossible.
Simon Pegg. That's right. He came on for Mission Impossible,
Benji.
became friends with J.J. Abrams. And then J.J.
Hate
Abrams
it.
was like, hey, do you want to be in my Star Trek movie? And he's like,
Well,
what do you think?
I'll tell you
Yeah.
a
Of
quick
course I
story
do.
about that, Jacob.
Yeah.
Here's how it actually goes is he makes Mission Impossible 3 and he goes, I'm going to reach out to my best British friend to star in this. Got a perfect part for you. It's called Benji. Ricky Gervais, how you doing, my man?
Right.
Ricky Gervais says, no, I don't want to be in that movie. J.J. Abrams like, you got it, okay. Goes on to make Star Trek and it's like, Ricky, I got the perfect part for you again. It's Montgomery Scott. You get to play Scotty. Don't do it with the Scottish accent. Just be grumpy. What do you think? And Ricky Gervais says no. And he gets
Wow.
Simon
Well,
I'm
Pegg
glad he
again.
did.
Yeah.
Glad he did, because Simon Pegg is better than Ricky Gervais.
And he goes
No,
on to help write Star Trek Beyond.
Writes one of the movies, Mike. Like that other timeline makes
Mhm.
no sense to have Ricky Gervais
No,
in
no,
this
no.
role.
We probably had a different outcome in 2016 election with that, but at least we have Simon Pegg in the Star Trek movies.
I'll take this
timeline.
universe, Mike.
And he is doing a Scottish accent, even though his native accent is British, not Scottish.
He's in Scottish face. You're right. We're
Yeah,
putting
yeah.
out.
Dyed his hair.
Love him. He's got a little buddy with him for some reason.
Yeah,
not really
like a
bean.
But...
It was in this era where he was starring in Spaced, a BBC show that I fucking absolutely love.
Yes.
He made fucking Shaun of the Dead, and then he puts this big quote out when they're doing a press tour. They're like, would you ever do like a big movie? Would you ever be in Mission Impossible? And he goes, oh yeah, the next Mission Impossible will star me, Simon Pegg, me and Tom Cruise. He then, of course, gets the offer to star in Mission Impossible, and then, like we said, go on to do this. But this is his movie career. This is like Simon Pegg starting, basically.
Yes, and of course, he was in Spaced, made by Edgar Wright, of course. He has a long-time partnership with him doing Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead,
Cornello trilogy, yep.
That's right.
The best.
But fun fact, so if you've seen Spaced, there is an episode where his character talks about Star Trek, and you remember what he says, Colin? He makes a reference to the even, how for a long time there's this belief that the even number Treks are good and the odd ones are bad.
Yeah,
right?
We've brought it up on this podcast, of course.
And now, of course, so Nemesis was 10, so that would make this 11. So this is an odd number. So his character literally talks about that Star Trek curse in an episode of Space, and now he's in the 11th Star Trek.
Wow. I remember when he bullies a kid for liking Phantom Menace in that show. That really holds up, I'm sure.
That was a good show. Classic British comedy. Gotta love it.
Yeah, and he
has an
interest
we get our
in Star
Scotty.
Trek. Yeah, so it's perfect for him,
Yeah.
We get our Enterprise reference here. Why is he on this stupid Antarctica outpost? Well, he tried to
I don't know.
prove that he could beam crazy stuff, and he accidentally beamed as a test Admiral Archer's prize beagle.
That's
and
right.
It just never reappeared. So Scott
when it
Bakula's
does, I'll
dog.
Admiral Archer's prize beagle. Scott
from-
Bakula.
Oh,
Enterprise.
that's the reference
Porthos.
to
Scott
the
Bakula's
to
dog.
Enterprise?
He lost
so
it.
in
Guys,
Enterprise,
I hate that.
He has a beagle named Porthos, who's great.
I don't appreciate
A dog
or
in
approve any of
space.
that.
They have a pet
No.
in that one. How is that not great?
I like Spot. I don't need Porthos.
Portos? Yeah, okay.
Porthos.
And he's Admiral Archer, and he would obviously be like an old man by this point because Enterprise.
How old is that dog?
They
got
my
good dog
14
technology.
clone of Porthos.
Yeah.
Just put him in this transporter. No.
Right.
If you think about it, Scotty kind of helped him live forever,
By the way, I just realized Simon Pegg is in The Boys, right? He plays Jack Quaid's dad. Carl Urban is in the boys.
Of course.
Yeah.
They worked
course, of
together
course.
before. I didn't even realize that.
But do Scotty and Bones ever really cross over on these movies? I don't
I'm
think
sure they
so,
do in
right?
some of the sequels. They got to have some
Well,
lines.
hope
here.
it'll be
so.
fun to see that. We'll talk about it.
We'll
in 2
track the
months.
number of conversations they've had,
Yeah.
like Legolas
Yeah.
and Frodo.
Yeah,
Zero.
yeah, seriously.
Literally, the
Yeah.
only thing he says to Frodo, "You have my bow." That's the only
my
thing
bow.
he says to him. Yeah.
The only thing
Hey
he
man, it
needs
was
to say.
great. I got a couple friends like that where it's like, yeah, you've always been there. We've always
But
been
he's
in these
also
group
like,
situations.
I'm like 1,000 years old. You're a baby. Like,
Yeah,
I'll help
I
you.
can't talk to you.
Yeah, you're like a little thing. Anyway,
Can't
so
lay it out.
Spock ends up. We need to get to the Enterprise. That's the agency here, ticking clock.
Sorry,
We gotta
real
save
quick.
Earth.
Carl Urban also in Lord of the Rings. Go ahead.
Oh my
That's right.
God! Yes.
Sorry, it was
He's
a
in
tip.
everything.
Absolutely great. So Spock is saying, in the future, you've discovered the theory for transwarp teleportation, transport. So he puts in the algorithm that Montgomery Scott would figure out, a little throwaway line. I would have
kind
never
of
considered space moving,
It's kind of a time paradox because he tells him the formula, so he can't create it. He's got to be able to invent it himself for it to exist, or it's like a chicken and the egg thing. Like,
Well,
who
now
actually
it's,
invented
but
it?
it's, we're creating a parallel dimension. But anyway, yeah.
Right.
A little weird. Well, it's the same thing as like him telling Kirk, Spock saying, "You can't tell other Spock that I exist. It's a fucking big deal." But that's all.
But then he
a
just
lie.
does anyway. He meets
Yeah,
him
yeah.
at the end.
So
Yeah.
it's
I
like
don't know.
that
I'll just
doesn't work
call
in
him
this
later.
universe that way. Yeah.
Right.
But we warp into the Enterprise while it's going warp speed towards Earth or to rendezvous because Kirk wants him to turn around and go
transwarp
after the Narada.
beaming.
Yes.
Previously thought impossible, made possible.
Which changes a lot going forward for this universe. But they do it. Little action, the comedy scene. Montgomery ends up inside the
In a
water
pipe.
tubes, and you got to get him
Love
out.
it. I
Again,
love
it's
this
gotta
whole
be
sequence.
you got to have action every couple minutes.
I
or
like the
audience is gonna get
engineering
bored.
set. Exactly.
What do you guys think about Creamer? Is that his name? Creeper?
A little guy? I like little guy.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where he comes
I think
from.
his name's
What
Creamer.
his deal is.
Okay,
his name's
I
Creamer.
don't like that.
Yeah.
He's just a little dude.
He can eat a bean and he chills out. Yeah, I like him. He's fine. He's like Silent Groot.
So yeah, Scotty just happened to be in this Starfleet outpost on this planet. Like you said, a lot of coincidences happening. But that's okay.
And we had an action scene that I didn't talk about where he gets chased by a monster that then gets eaten by a bigger monster. It's a whole thing.
Classic.
That's mandatory for a trailer this summer.
Seems like Mike, that's a fucking perfect way to put that. This movie has a lot of scenes that are good for trailers.
Strange. New life. Anyway.
We gotta go!
Yeah, right? Holy shit.
This character's like saying stuff like that.
Well, it's like the opening of some of the other ones too. It's like very...
100%. 100%.
But we get back to the Enterprise. We save Scott. How did you guys get on here? What the fuck? And then there's a big argument. Spock does mention...
Prime Spock...
You're going to need to become captain. He says, you're going to have to get that to happen.
You're basically going to have to trick younger me into getting emotional, and thereby, if he gets emotional, then he'll have to resign as captain, of course, because captains can't be emotional except for Kirk when he's captain.
Spock is just doing this because he thinks this will correct the time period. He doesn't realize that, like, of course, all the dominoes have fallen. There's like no going back at this point.
I like his explanation later on. You know, we'll get to it, but you know, he is risking a lot here.
Yeah. But this scene is pretty funny because basically Kirk has to trick Spock emotionally into getting in a fight, and then immediately he's like, "Oh, well, I guess I have to resign." And then like, wait, who's the acting first officer? Oh, Kirk. Okay, I guess you're captain now, even though
that gets corroborated by Sulu, who was there though. Like, at least it's not him saying I was first officer. Sulu's like, yeah, Pike made him first officer. Like, technically, we're
legally,
there's no one else that could have been the captain. Like,
he assumes
just
again, Pike took a big risk.
Chair sit.
Yeah, because when Pike knew they were going on the away mission, he's like, "You're first officer." Like, and he believes in Kirk's potential, so he's really putting it all on Kirk in that moment.
Getting in the future.
Yeah, he really is saying, "Hey, man, I think you can do this." So good on Pike to see that. But yeah, it seems like to everyone else on the ship, who the fuck is this guy? Why is he telling us what to do?
Basically, so through some shenanigans, Kirk gets made acting captain.
He basically says, "Your mom died, and you don't even care. You probably don't fucking care about her." And like,
which you remember in the beginning. The one thing that elicited an emotional response was those kids mentioning his mom. So his human mother is kind of his weak point in terms of making him emotional.
Mm-hmm. And he responds the same way. He punches Kirk in the face several times, just like he did to his bull.
Yeah.
You know.
And of course, he did just lose his home planet and his mother. And I like this because he's, of course, Vulcan. So it makes sense that he's concealing his emotions or pushing them down. But like Spock does, because he's half human, when his human side comes out, it's like stronger, and he's just, lets all the rage out at once, right?
Yeah, and he's completed the Colinar to even be able to go to the Science Academy. So theoretically, he's done the suppression of emotions thing. But...
And they do mention, like the history of the Vulcans is that, and this is mentioned in the OG movies as well, that the Vulcans used to be a very savage, emotional race. They were even like more savage than early humans, but they decided to suppress all emotion and just use logic only, and that's why they became the way they are, right? But they, like they say, they even have stronger emotions than humans. They're just better at pushing them down.
Push it down. Push it deep.
Keep pushing it down. That's what's
become
healthy,
a powder
right?
keg. Being a man 101. Just push it down until you explode in an inappropriate place.
Right. Really, every Vulcan just needs to go to therapy. Basically,
really, that would be logical.
Vulcans would benefit by going to therapy and talking about their emotions.
That's true. So don't do the Colinar, people. I advise against it. But now we got Kirk in the chair, and he says, "Okay, I know we're gonna go home. We're going after the Narada. Fuck it, we're gonna go stop them. That's the plan." And then that's where we kind of get our finale. I have mixed feelings about it because it's just like shoot a couple phasers in a hallway, jump on a platform. Like, it's not a very great finale. It's pretty low key.
Yeah.
Right?
Again, I think Nero is kind of a weak villain.
But he's not
just
worse
not
than
that
Chang.
interesting to me.
I know Chang has that dinner scene.
But Chang has an eye patch. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not even saying motivation-wise, Mike, that he would need to change. I just agree with Jacob in the weakness of there's a way that he could have been portrayed. I don't even think it needs to be that he's like great at like combat or like torture or anything, but like I don't know, but whatever it is, it's lacking, and I can't come up with
even giving some kind of complexity to his character other than he's just out for revenge and doesn't care about anything else.
Yeah, and he could like kill Kirk, and then he hears that Spock's around, so then he's like, "Fuck it, second officer, do it." Like he'll like disengage from a primary target. He makes like dumb decisions, like for the script's sake, too. So
I didn't rewatch it, but I believe there is a deleted scene where you see him getting tortured by a Klingon. And sort of like setting up a little more Nero stuff.
Well, they went to the Klingon prison planet. I wondered what the fuck they were doing there. So
right, Rurapente or whatever.
Yeah, nice, good call.
Rurapente. Wow,
that's where
you guys are crushing at this episode.
Another snowy place. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So basically,
is that where we met David Bowie's wife?
Yeah, that's where we got
guys, I'm so happy we watched all of these. This is the best. This movie's the fucking best.
Yeah, Eric Bana notwithstanding. So it's like it's kind of a simple thing. We rescue Pike and this and that, and
Yeah. So it's a big action finale. Kirk fights a Romulan for a while and then kills him, and then
I got your gun. Sure, that's fine.
Spock's got to pilot this shuttle, his shuttle, right?
I have a feeling I already have. Yeah, they try to steal back Spock's ship, get the red matter out of there. And Kirk has a moment where he lands on the edge of a cliff and has to pull himself up like he did when he was a kid. So Spock
I never
punches someone for making fun of his mom twice, and then Kirk has to pull himself up from a ledge twice.
That's good, Mike.
Yeah, I catch these.
There's some stuff here. This is good.
So they stop.
They stop him. They end up accidentally. Nero ends up sort of self-detonating the red matter because he's pissed off or whatever, and he creates a black hole that's inevitably going to consume them. But while that's happening, we're on the bridge. Kirk is captain still. Spock's just cool with it, I guess. And Kirk's like, "Hey, we're going to offer assistance. Humanitarian aid. We're Starfleet." And then I like this. I thought you'd like that. And Spock's like, "Not this time."
Not this time.
Like,
they
say no. And then Kirk
like,
says,
"Hell no,
I'd rather
die
a painful." It was a really bad speech too. It wasn't even good. I'd rather just die a painful death.
All right, I was hoping you'd say that or whatever.
I don't like that Kirk then says fire everything. Like the black hole's already going to destroy them. Just get out of there.
Yeah, this is very Star Wars over Star Trek.
Shoot every gun at them.
Was this around the time when Funny People came out? Was Eric Bana kind of having a moment again?
Let's see.
Was that like 2009-ish, Mike?
He was in the Incredible Hulk Ang Lee, right? That was like 2005.
Was it really? So he was in 2 movies this year, and just kind of playing parts where I remember people being like, "Eric Bana's back," and then both of them I remember being like, "Eric Bana's not back,"
but also getting replaced by Edward Norton as the Hulk.
Yeah,
right.
And then,
well, that's not even right. I mean, I guess it is, but I mean, they all get replaced. It turns out.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they get pulled in the singularity. Narada's destroyed. Bad Romulan's gone. All the red matter presumably blew up, so there's no more red matter in this timeline.
Sure.
And mission accomplished. We done did it. There's some flying and shooting going on, Sulu and this, but pretty much we did it.
And we have our bridge crew. They go back to Earth, and they're like, "All right, Kirk, we're making you captain. You're going from cadet to captain immediately because of the events of this film."
That's how it goes.
And then it ends, right?
Yep, and then it ends.
And you're on that bridge, and you've been the Yowman, Mike, for like 5 years, and you're like, "This is fucking bullshit."
You know how hard it was to even get on the flagship?
Yeah, I heard George Kirk was a captain.
Oh man,
Nepo babies.
And I can hear the whispers. His dad died in line of duty. It's fucking bullshit. Like,
right. Pike
got a medal
with his dad or whatever.
Yeah.
But we do see Pike at the end here in a wheelchair, which is a reference to him ending up in that.
Beep chair.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
I didn't put that together. I don't like that.
Of course.
Yep.
It's not like he's like beep, 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 beep.
Nope. Well, we have a different timeline. So it's not quite the same, but similar, right?
And that's not going to happen in this timeline because it does not end out well for Pike. Let me tell you guys.
He shows up in the next film, but who knows?
We'll see.
See what happens.
We'll see.
He'll probably be fine.
No one can predict what's going to happen.
I'm sure nothing
in that
bad will
movie.
happen. Yeah.
We don't have to heighten stakes in any ways in a big blockbuster sequel. Yeah, no, go ahead.
But I think overall,
yeah.
with Star Trek, 2009,
this film,
I like it as a movie. It's not my favorite like kind of Star Trek. Like I don't like. I like it as its own thing, but I still prefer like classic Trek to me. Again, it's very over the top, extreme, loud noises, action happening all the time, very kinetic energy to it as a movie, which I think works for it, but it's not what I want all of Star Trek to be like.
Yeah.
But it does kind of set the template for this franchise going forward, this cast. I think there's some really good things about it. Like I said, the sense of scale with the ships, with Starfleet and everything. I don't know what else to say. I think mixed feelings, but I like it.
Yeah, I like it overall. I'll probably have a couple final thoughts after we do the Wrath of Cobb quiz coming up soon here in a minute. But I like it. I hate the bridge. I really hate the bridge. I hate the lens flares. I really do not like it at all. And as you mentioned with the scale being good for the ships, the close-ups are so fucking close. Like if you did all this stuff for the bridge, just pull out a little bit. Like it's so tight. And I'm like, the scale would look great on a big screen, but it would be way too close in a movie theater. So I don't get some of the framing on the bridge. It's a little too claustrophobic.
Sure.
For me.
Yeah, and the all white, the shininess of it all, like it's just all very bright. I do like the uniform design where it's a throwback to the when William Shatner would just wear a yellow V-neck shirt to denote him as the captain. So I like that they go back to those classic colors, and we get kind of a similar reimagining of this era with Strange New Worlds. And I do like the bridge in Strange New Worlds a lot more than like this bridge, right?
That's one of my favorite bridges, I think, besides Enterprise D. But Colin, what are your kind of general thoughts before we quiz it up?
I really do agree with Jacob. I like this movie, but I kind of really like it more as a concept. I've said on this podcast in the past, I think the idea for this screenplay, bar none, one of the best ideas for a blockbuster anyone's ever had. They had a true life Kobayashi Maru, an unwinnable situation where it's like, fuck, we have to reboot the series that started fandoms.
I love that take.
Probably not going to react very well to it. They're probably going to get mad. Mathematically, what can we do here? Shit. All that stuff that happened, we swear to God it's still important. It exists. You love it. We do too. Here is this other thing. Is this okay? And basically waiting for them to be like, it is okay. We do like it. And them going, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
I do like how it's not just a straight reboot. It's a soft reboot in a different timeline. The other timeline still exists. It's okay. You can like both.
It's the final chapter of Spock Prime's tale. I think that's cool. Like the end of his story is the beginning of this universe. Great, and it gives you the memories of those old films. I like it.
It would be like if Multiverse of Madness was the ending for the Patrick Stewart, Charles Xavier we knew, and not like a weird multiverse other one. You know what I mean? Like there is some beauty and honor to it. I fucking guarantee we
honestly,
will.
There's a beauty and honor in it. I think. Yes. I felt like, damn, it's respectful what you did with Spock. And when he mentions, I needed you and Kirk to become friends because it was so important. He was my best friend, and if you guys never had a chance to become friends, that would have been terrible. And and then you think of the movies, and it's like I'm thinking at the end of Wrath of Khan, I'm like, Jesus, it's great. It's great.
If I went through a wormhole and like Joe's dad was dead, and I was talking to young versions of us, and I was like, well, shit, I still gotta make us fucking friends. And like that was the thing that was like most important to me. Like you gotta be like, well, there's some other stuff you gotta fix, my man. I don't know.
But you have to have the same friend group. That's like important.
Yes, I'd be like, you gotta call these guys. It's just like, look, man.
There's a guy named Montgomery Scott. All right.
There's a guy named Mike Romans.
Yeah, right. You gotta meet him.
But I like this show makes, this movie, it makes some pretty big changes to what we know about these characters, right? Spock and Uhura are dating now.
Spock's the captain for a large portion.
Don't start as friends. Yeah. So it's interesting that they set up these characters that are established characters, but in new ways, and it does really work for me. So I would agree. Like
to just doing the beat by beat reboot, right? It's a smart way to do it if you're gonna do it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So
and
shout
it
out
maintains
to
prime canon.
that.
Yeah, respect.
Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to these two guys who had one good idea.
Yeah. And Orsi and
All it takes is
Kurtzman.
one.
And Kurtzman, I guess they liked him so much. They're like, hey, do you want to run Star Trek forever and just be involved with every creative decision going forward? And he's like, yeah, I guess I do.
And then for
that's
the
how
next
we
one,
got
they're literally
Discovery.
like, let's just get the Lost guy. And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
You got it. But yeah.
So yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
Star Trek 2009.
Yeah, I'm ready for the Vulcan Academy's
I'm
official
stoked.
Star Trek 2009 quiz.
I'm stoked. I can't
know
believe
enough.
Jacob's putting you and I in the Kobayashi Maru, Mike. We're about to reset right
That's
now.
right.
I'm gonna go grab an apple.
Kobayashi Maru.
Yep.
The Kobayashi, I test you.
Wow.
The
That's what it should be
Kobayashi
called.
Maru.
It's no longer
Oh.
the Wrath of Cobb.
No.
Maybe next movie. Next month.
Yeah.
Maybe next movie. A special one-off.
The one time the universe has been reset is now. If you're gonna
Star
reset
Trek.
it now. Kobayashi
Yeah.
Maru.
Cobb into darkness.
Yes, yeah, in the cobness. All right,
Into
let's do it.
Cobbness.
I'm grabbing an apple. It's quiz time.
We're back here on Normies Like Us, where we have been talking away on the one, the only Star Trek. That's right, just Star Trek 2009 here on Normies Like Us with your hosts. We're about to do what we always do when we talk a little Trek.
Wow. It's the
That's right.
Kobayashi Maru.
Oh,
There we go.
Kobayashi Maru.
Got the lens
quizzing it
flares
up with
going.
with
We're
some
ready?
lens flare.
I don't believe in no lens scenarios. So, listeners at home, you know how this goes. True or false, right? There'll be
Classic.
Yeah.
one or two to designate one being true, two being
If
false.
you're
Me
watching.
and Colin will reveal that. Otherwise, you'll have to just take our word for it.
That's right.
That's right.
But nobody.
right.
First of all, nobody
Yeah.
passes the Kobayashi Maru, and nobody goes back for seconds, let alone thirds. But I'm
That's
here
right.
for as long as it's going to take.
That's
It's
right.
meant to instill fear.
It's
That's
a
the
true
lesson you're supposed to learn.
Admiral Jacob that no one's ever even gotten a point in the Kobayashi Maru.
That's right.
That's right.
Can't get through the tutorial, but I'm here for it. Let's go.
You got your apples? All right.
And remember, just real quick, thinking about seeing it in Wrath of Khan, it's like some of your supervisors lay down and pretend to be dead, and you're like, okay, like we gotta go over here, we gotta do this thing. Like it's
Yeah.
not that stressful.
Yeah, no. How it's a simulation? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Right. Like, how scared
Come
are you
on.
really going to be in a simulation?
Yeah. Oh, well,
I don't know. All right. Let's jump in.
I'm nervous.
First question. Zachary Quinto couldn't do the Vulcan salute when he was cast as Spock. Is that true or false?
I'm ready.
Well, he does
Let me
have
do it.
2 hands, so interesting. Yeah, there we go.
All right. What do we think?
I'm ready.
I'm
Ready?
locked in.
3, 2, 1. Reveal.
I'm saying
False.
That was true. He had to
Oh.
glue his fingers together to train his hand to be able to do that.
Okay.
true.
Why?
Wow.
Because some people can't naturally do this.
They can't do what? They can't spread their fingers?
They can't do this. They can't make the Vulcan salute.
We're doing the Vulcan salute, listeners. All
But
We can all do
what
it.
do you mean? You could just, if you can move your fingers, you can.
Not
do
everyone
it.
can do this. Like,
Not everybody can
they
independently
can't
control.
figure
I
out how
think
to
the
make
middle
their
ones
fingers
is
do that.
easy.
Yeah.
What?
For some reason they have a hard time
Okay, I guess.
spreading them.
Yeah. But all right.
But there you
Point
go.
from
He had to
Mike
glue his
Coy.
fingers together.
All right.
All right, next question.
Hold on, can you guys do that tongue thing?
What?
The curl,
Tongue
the
thing.
curl tongue.
I
thing?
can't do that. No.
You guys can't do that.
No, I'm not
No.
gonna try.
Jacob tried
like being
to
double
do
jointed.
it with
I don't want that
just
screenshot out there.
stuck his
Yeah.
tongue out.
Some people are double jointed. Some people can
Yeah.
do weird things with their tongue.
Can't
That's
move your
right.
middle fingers. I don't know. I'm worried about our society.
Tell it to Zachary Quinto.
If I ever meet
yeah.
him, I will say, "What is wrong with you?"
Finger glue.
Lost a point, thank you,
Should have
finger glue
stolen the
boy.
superpower that allows him to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
Big
next
talk.
question.
I see into your mind that you can spread your
Your
fingers.
fingers. That's
Oh my
mad.
God,
mutant
it's
ability.
Siler. His hunger. He
You're
knows no end.
victimized just for that. What a bummer.
You
All
see, I
right.
was just cast as Spock. In the
I
Star
heard
Trek
you
movie.
can do the tongue thing. Oh God, he's got all the abilities. If he gets one more.
Yeah. Oh man. If he can snap his fingers like Ali G, we're done for.
Yeah,
Yeah, it'll be the death of us.
he can do all the weird things with his body.
That's right.
All right, next question.
Next
question. The USS Kelvin was named after J.J. Abrams' grandfather. True or false?
Kelvin Abrams, or I'm guessing Kelvin's the last name.
Could be Kelvin Abrams.
Jan
Could
was
be.
saying
Yeah,
Okay,
his
I'm
last
ready.
name could be Kelvin. I'm not exactly
Could
sure.
be J.J. Kelvin.
Yeah,
We'll
Okay.
never know.
the JJ is the family name part.
That's right.
Dr. Leah Abrams. I'm ready.
I am locked in.
Yeah.
All right, ready? 3, 2, 1, reveal.
True.
I'm saying false. We're split again.
That is true.
Whoa, no tie game.
That is true.
I know my Abrams, Mike.
Damn. I
Old
don't.
Kelvin Abrams.
Oh,
Yeah.
Kelvin. Kelvin himself.
So imagine that, he named it the USS Kelvin, and now that's what that whole timeline is called, the Kelvin timeline.
Oh, that's cool.
Because that's the
Okay.
big change that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I never realized that. All right, that is a fun fact. Okay. All right, well, we're all tied up. Just like
1 to 1?
Pickles. 1 to 1.
All right, next question.
1 to 1.
Matt Damon. Matt Damon was the first choice to play Kirk. True or false? Matt
Okay.
Damon.
I'm locked in.
I'm locked in.
All right.
Lock him in.
Yep.
3, 2, 1, reveal.
Gotta be true.
True for both of us.
Wow. That is false. I
Oh.
got you both.
Dang.
So
Pike?
apparently what did happen though is Matt Damon called J.J. Abrams and was like, hey, I hear you're looking for a new Captain Kirk for your Star Trek movie. What about me? And J.J. Abrams was like, he told him very politely, no, because you're too old for the role.
Oh.
It's the younger Kirk. So Matt Damon, you're too old in 2009 to play Kirk. Sorry.
Oh.
Dang. Just
Would
go
have
to
been a
Mars.
good Kirk.
Yeah.
Would
Think so?
have done the weird impression.
Would have been more
Would not have
Shatner,
been a
like-
movie star.
And they
yes.
didn't
Would
wanna-
have done the stilted dialogue.
Right.
They could have had him be George.
I think I was reading about
Oh,
so
instead of Chris
Pine,
Hemsworth. That would be interesting.
Chris Pine, he looked at some old, he watched some old episodes, but he really wanted to keep his performance separate from Kirk, so he wasn't just doing a straight up Kirk, and was doing his own thing. So I think that was a better route to go
I
down.
prefer it. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. All right,
All right,
3
1-1.
questions down.
Oh, and I sent you guys that SNL video. He does host at one point and prove
Yes.
that he can do
He
the
does
one-to-one
he does a
impression.
Shatner
Yes.
impression. Yes, it's very funny.
I was working on my lens flare rig. I forgot to watch it before we started. I'll check it out. But let's
That's right.
4.
All right, 3 questions down, 3 questions to go, plus a bonus question. So there you
Okay.
go. Extra
There
credit.
we are.
Yep.
All right, question number
We're
4.
tied right now, I believe.
Yep. 1 to 1.
Tied 1-1. So this is very specific, but the engine room of the USS Enterprise was filmed in a Budweiser factory in Van Nuys, California.
Oh, that is. I
Colin,
love
you
that
probably know
specific. Thank you.
where that,
I
Budweiser
know that
factory is.
Anheuser factory. Absolutely. I've
Yeah.
asked if we could tour it on my birthday. Nobody ever takes any bites, but there is a lot of liquid in that scene. Is the only thing leading me right now. But
Yeah, a lot
I'm
of
locked
pipes.
in.
I'm locked
Yeah.
in, yeah.
Yeah,
All right, ready? 3, 2, 1, reveal.
I'm gonna go true.
True, that is true.
Love it.
Nice.
So there you go. I was like, Van Nuys, California? I've driven
Weird.
past that Budweiser factory many times.
You
Well,
get
there's like
right on
another
literally
one,
the
too.
170 right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought you could have been tricking us, like, oh no, it's another
Oh.
one, because I knew
Sure.
it was a big brewery. Like I knew that through
Right.
anecdotes, but I could have
Yeah.
gotten tricked. Okay.
Apparently,
Van
the
Nuys.
USS Kelvin, the engine room was shot in an old power plant in Long Beach. So there you go. A little fun
Alright.
fact for you.
Shout out to
Weird.
Van Nuys.
And also I wanted to mention when they're on Vulcan and there's that outcropping of rocks, there's a very famous kind of silhouette
Yes.
of rocks that was shot in California, and that was used a lot in the old show. They shoot episodes in
Oh,
that desert.
That's where Arena happens.
yeah.
It's
Like
a place
Death
called
Valley or something.
Vasquez Rocks. No, it's about an
Vasquez
hour and a
Rocks, I
half
think that
north.
that's
Vasquez
exactly
rocks.
right.
Guys, when is our pilgrimage at the end of
I've
this Star
shot
Trek
there.
series?
Some
Wow.
student
It's a very
film stuff,
popular
and
shooting place.
Bill
Anytime
and
you
Ted
need like
go there
a
to
deserty
imitate it.
looking.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
Mike.
So Vulcan always has those shapes that look like, the Vasquez rocks, that iconic angular thing.
That's so cool.
And even in Strange
there
New
you
Worlds, it's Vasquez rocks. And once you see it, you'll never be able to unsee it. Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So that's very fun.
All right, 2-2.
All right, 2-2.
We both got that one. Next question. Nichelle Nichols, the original Uhura, filmed a scene as playing Uhura's grandmother that was ultimately cut.
Oh, would they double down on this a couple of times? That's interesting. Okay, I'm locked in.
I'm locked in.
Think about it. Lock it in. 3, 2, 1. Reveal.
I'm gonna say true.
True. Same. So
I
it
got
still
you
remains
guys
the same.
both. It was false, but it was a tricky one because they were interested. So she wanted to come in. They offered her to do a cameo. She was going to do it. But what we were talking about earlier, the writer's strike happened. And J.J. Abrams contractually couldn't write a new scene. Yeah, he couldn't write that scene. So they wanted to, I guess they were already into production or something. They wanted to have her come in to do a cameo as Uhura's grandmother. But because of the writer's strike, they couldn't write it in.
Wow. How about that?
Yeah.
That is so wild, dude.
So she would have. So you had Spock, who's playing Prime Spock, and then you would have had Nichelle Nichols playing this Uhura's grandmother.
And so JJ does the Lost pilot and then leaves completely that series, I believe, to do Mission Impossible and then from there Star Trek. So that timing, since Lost season like 2 or 3 is when the writer's strike hits, that makes sense. That does line up.
Season 3 of Lost was due to the writer's strike, and a lot of people, and it was kind of known as like a big drop in quality, right? They introduced a bunch of new characters in Lost, and it went, there was those famous characters that died by getting bit by poisonous spiders that paralyzed them, and then they got buried alive. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
So
on Lost.
Yeah, it was these new characters they introduced in season 3, and then no one liked them, so like, all right, we're gonna kill them off by.
We're talking about the
this
tailies?
elaborate. This was these are, I think they were tailies, but they were like robbers, right? Anyways,
yeah,
sure. And then famously, season 2 of Heroes was cut short and terrible because of the writer's strike. So Zachary Quinto was probably like in between shooting, like getting fitted for ears and stuff.
Yeah, must have been
very likely.
Weird. All this stuff. 2009 was a big year for me, guys.
A lot happening.
Was I a senior in high school then? I kind of felt at the top of my powers, maybe.
You would have probably been in college.
Okay, 2007 I graduated. Yeah, you're right.
I graduated
sophomore
08.
in college.
Yep.
This movie was originally going to come out 08, but got delayed to May of 09.
So I think I saw this at the ArcLight too. So
wait, when was Crystal Skull? Was it 2009?
No,
that was 2008. That was the summer of 2008.
I'm just saying, guys. These couple years, man.
2008
I was
Spider-Man 3, the Simpsons movie.
Spider-Man 3 was coming out around this time.
Yeah, Spider-Man 3.
Jesus.
Maybe I don't like.
I remember because that was the summer after I graduated high school. I was just going to movies all summer long. My friend worked at a movie theater, so I would get in for free. So me and my friends, we were just going to all these summer movies. Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen, I think.
What a year!
A bunch of other ones.
What a fucking year!
Jeez. All right.
But
we got one more and a bonus question.
Yes,
is that what
please.
That's right. So we have. So this is question 6. What's the score right now? Are you guys
2 to 2. We're tied up.
Still tied. A lot of misses.
The bonus question maybe will be the tiebreaker.
Yeah, we've been getting tricked.
Okay. Last question of the regular questions. So during filming, Orsi and Kurtzman, the writers, approached Leonard Nimoy and asked him to star in their Transformers movie to voice a character that they were writing, a little movie called Revenge of the Fallen. Is that true or false?
I'm locked in.
Yeah, I'm locked in.
All right, think about it. Ready? 3, 2, 1, reveal.
Yeah, true. I think that's right.
Same side.
False.
Wow, he's tricked us so many times.
I tricked you again. Oh wait, no, that was true. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
that was
wait
true.
a minute. Dude, we know that's a fact. I know that's a fact.
I did kind of trick you because it wasn't. He didn't end up being in Revenge of the Fallen. So they asked him to be in Revenge of the Fallen, and he was going to play the Fallen. He was in Dark of the Moon.
Dark of the Moon.
So originally they asked him to be in Revenge of the Fallen. He couldn't do it. eventually voiced
so we
Sentinel
were
Prime
wrong.
in Dark of the Moon.
That's
They
right.
did ask him to be in Revenge of the Fallen, so it was true.
Fair enough. Okay.
Oh,
All right.
okay. I guess
I blew the answer to that, but
that's
long story short,
interesting though.
yes, it's true.
I know
He
he
was asked
said
to
no
be in
Prime.
one that
The
a different one
Fallen.
he was in.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, and
He
they
was
were
his
worried
face
because like,
taken.
oh, he's not going to do our Transformers movie. But then he was like, hell yeah, I was in the the animated movie and I loved it, so I would love to come back.
I remember you guys.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah.
Fucking Star Trek.
All right.
All
So
right.
2-2 or 3-3.
3-3.
No, yeah, sure.
Final.
So this will be the tiebreaker then.
Yeah.
So this is not a true false.
Oh,
This is you can buzz in whoever guesses the right answer first. Okay.
so we'll say, beam me up, Jacob, if you've got the answer.
Okay.
Sure. Okay. Which actor in the cast, in the main bridge crew cast, we'll say, which actor was a self-described religious fan of Star Trek since they were a kid? If you can guess which cast member
Of
Bridge
this
crew.
film.
of this film, yeah, like Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto. Any of them.
Jacob, I have the
Wait.
answer.
None of them really come off. Yes, please, Mike.
Zoe Saldana.
No.
All right. Well, you open shot, Colin.
All right, Colin.
Open
Yeah,
net.
can I steal here?
Your rebuttal?
So
Yeah.
really, none of them do come off like Trekkies.
I'll say think about their age and maybe how it lines up with what they would have been watching as a kid.
Hmm.
None of them seem that old to me, so I'm gonna say
Just guess.
I'm going with my heart. You said the age thing, and that's changing my answer. But what I
Okay.
want to say is Anton Yelchin.
No.
Hmm.
Should I give you the answer?
I mean,
Or
how
should
many
you guys-
chances
you
can I
wanna
get
keep
to
guessing?
steal? Right. I
So we
think
go-
my final guess would
One
be
last buzz
Carl
in.
Urban.
Yeah, if you've got it, Mike. Oh, of course, Carl Urban's the oldest guy in this cast. You
Carl
have to
Urban.
be
That
fucked.
was the age hint I was trying to give you.
Yes.
Carl Urban apparently was a huge Trekkie, watched
That's
the original
awesome.
series when he was a kid, and loved the show. So he
His
jumped at the
performance
chance
was
to
a dead
play
giveaway.
Bones. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he
Okay.
actively sought out the role of Bones. Apparently,
I also
there you
saw
go.
he was the only one who really had a previous relationship with Kurtzman and Ortsy because they were Xena Warrior Princess producers, where of course he is because it's a New Zealand product. You know,
Right.
he was on that show a couple times.
Mhm.
yeah,
That's great.
as
Oh,
was
man.
Anthony Starr.
Wow.
boys.
Of course.
All getting connected.
So that's the end of the quiz.
Oh, and we get Boimler too in the boys. Jesus Christ.
Guys.
What a tangled web we
guys.
weave.
Wow,
Guys.
wow.
Guys.
If you ever
That's
need
the end of the
bar
quiz. I
trivia
did
people,
want-
hit us up.
Yeah. So I guess Mike, you won.
On a
Yeah.
technicality,
Bonus question.
I changed the
no,
conditions
Your
of the
second
test.
try. Yeah.
You know.
But I did want to mention this last fact that I had that I couldn't fit into the quiz, but
Not
I thought
a
it's so
question.
funny. I have to
Mhm.
mention it. Apparently, at the Spike TV 2009 Scream Awards,
Okay.
Star Trek won for Best Movie. No one from the movie was there to accept the award, but William Shatner accepted the award despite having absolutely nothing to do with this film. In the acceptance speech, he jokingly accepted it as the director of Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. So there you
Wow.
go.
I don't like that fact. That makes
would
me very
scream.
upset.
Yeah.
The fact that Shatner was like, the Spike TV Awards are tonight. I get my tux ready. Like, you
Yeah.
know, he was like there without a doubt, like without a
Yeah.
question, he was going to that.
It's just
You
over
might
the other
remember
side
my
of the
movie
hill.
where I
If we hurry, we
fought
can make
God.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
I fought God. Incredible.
Die, God, die. Well, no. We don't like this
So
one.
there you go. That's
Yeah.
Star Trek 2009, J.J. Abrams,
Great quiz.
Kabayashi Maru. Great quiz. I
Kabayashi
think
Maru.
We faced the
Great
closest
one,
thing
Mike.
we ever will to God just now. Thank you.
That's right.
Technicality. And yeah,
right.
let's just transwarp beam over to final thoughts, right after this.
We're back here on Normies Like Us. We're wrapping up, talking our thoughts here on Star Trek 2009, the J.J. Abrams, Alex Kurtzman, Roberto Orci masterpiece.
That's right.
That's right.
Masterpiece indeed.
Masterpiece.
Masterpiece. Yeah.
I'll kind of jump in with some of my final thoughts here. I kind of really enjoyed it, even though it's fast. I think like it feels like a goofy Star Trek movie / episode. Like, oh, we get a transmission from a planet. Oh, we have to get the cadets out of here. Oh shit, it's bigger than we thought. It's a trap. You know, I don't know, like a petty weird villain of the week. Like it felt like substance wise, you know, obviously there's a lot of you know, style going on, but at its core of like the plot points and the way the character development is happening, I'm like, this is a pretty good Star Trek movie. You know,
Mike, they're just to interrupt your final thoughts real quick.
No, go ahead.
To agree with you, to say, think about it this way: there's no other Star Trek movie you would show to a non-fan to get them interested.
No, not even Wrath of Khan.
Right. No.
And
that's the argument, is that this is the most normie Trek has ever been, or 100%. Normies can jump into this and enjoy it.
Well,
it's Jacob kept saying it, but it's not your dad's Star Trek, and that's what I love about it.
That's right, baby.
Yeah. Well, then my question to both of you, then maybe Jacob, you can go first. But is this better than every Next Generation movie? I say yeah, 100%.
First Contact, I would still.
Oh, First Contact.
This, I think.
Yeah, First Contact is the only one I'll put above this, though. I think you're right.
I disagree with that completely. This film is rewatchable. I would say over most of the other Star Trek films, frankly.
First Contact I can rewatch.
First Contact is rewatchable.
But that's the only one I can rewatch. But
rewatchable, like you sit down and go, I know I did it a week ago, but First Contact again, baby. Here we come.
Interesting.
No way would you ever do that.
Yeah. So it's
I will say this, like in the. I'll say this, like in terms of comparing it to previous Trek, it's hard to do because it's so different. It's like going for a different thing, right? So can I really?
We don't have a TV cast reprising, right? It's way different.
Yeah.
So
I love the TNG cast and I love the TNG show, so I'd still obviously put the show over this movie. It's just that most of the TNG movies were not very good, unfortunately. But I feel like what TNG was just worked better as a show, and they tried to make it into like a Hollywood blockbuster, but it just didn't work. And it's like Picard trying to become Action Man Picard, like it just doesn't work. It doesn't fit, right? But I believe Chris Pine as Action Man Kirk.
Yeah.
It was Jack Ryan for one movie, Jacob.
Yeah. But I love this cast. I think they nailed the casting. I like the design. Like it's reminiscent of old Trek stuff with the uniforms, the phasers, the ship design and everything, but it's just tweaked enough that it's its own thing. So I really respect that it has like its own vision that it's going for. It may not be my favorite version of Star Trek, but I can appreciate what it is and still enjoy it as a film.
I like that. Yeah. Certainly not bad. And I mean, the sound design too is very, very good. And mixing in the old sound effects.
Yes.
It's loud, but like the phaser sounds are punched up, but it's still iconic. Like, you know.
And I think the sound was done by, I think his name is Ben Burt, who did Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like R2-D2 sounds and stuff very famously.
So he's the guy who walked past his TV with a microphone and it made the lightsaber noise. And he was like, what the hell? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
guys, that's
let's say
incredible.
as a movie, it's a better movie. Again, maybe not First Contact, but the other TNG movies. And some of the OG movies, you know, other than I think Wrath of Khan and Voyage Home for me are my favorite OG movies.
100%.
Colin, I'll kick it to you real quick. But I had identified when we were doing the original series movies, like I think the original series, those characters work best in the movies.
Yep.
And this proves that it doesn't need to be those actors because this movie still works with those characters, right?
Yeah, that's a really great point, Mike. I think we all kind of came to that conclusion watching those early episodes in this series. And there are parts of me that really wonder, Jacob, what the Starfleet Academy movie could have just been, and maybe if I would have just liked that better.
Yeah, well, this is kind of building off that idea because they started at the Academy. And Roddenberry had been wanting to do kind of a prequel, young Kirk and Spock at the Academy for like decades at this point.
Since TNG, right? Like literally, it was like, come
that was
on.
the original idea for TNG, right? So in a way, they're kind of fulfilling what he wanted for the future of Trek.
And I'm fine with it being the first act of this. Like, I don't need an entire movie at the Academy. I personally don't. I don't want a TV show at the Academy. Like, I'm not into Harry Potter, Star Trek school, right? But that's me.
That's I'm kind of on the other side. Again, I said my favorite stuff is the first act of this film, and when they get to the Enterprise, it kind of becomes more of just a people pointing and going like, say your line, do the
Mm.
thing.
That's fair.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, it has a really good setup, but it maybe lags a little bit in the middle. But I feel like the pacing is pretty good, where it's just like, anytime you're bored with like a talking scene or something, they're gonna have some kind of crazy action or something.
There's gonna be a
going on.
monster.
Someone changing,
Yeah.
getting half naked while they're talking. They'll have something for you to look at. Yeah.
Right.
And that'll continue. Don't
but
worry.
overall, and as a prequel, it sets up these characters great. And if this had just come out, I'd be thinking, man, I can't wait for the sequel. I hope it's really good and I don't hate it or anything.
This would be a Paramount Plus original, Jacob. It would be like
Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes, essentially, they would have gotten a much cheaper cast.
Well, it's interesting to think about now with our favorite show, Strange New Worlds. You have a second recasting of a lot of these characters now.
It's been very hard this entire episode to sort of keep it evergreen and not every point we bring up go to. And it's actually interesting in Strange New Worlds how especially after, look, we were kind of ragging on this early season 2 episodes. Now I'm like super back into the show.
I like season 2.
Great.
I've liked every episode so far to different degrees. And we've seen more new Kirk and everything.
It's interesting that show does not fight against any shadows or legacies for me, and that I truly am free to just sort of watch it and be like, this is fun and exciting. Whereas to this, there is still sort of a little bit in my bones that is like, well, that's not Shatner. That is Nimoy, strangely, and just sort of making these sort of ghastly comparisons.
Yeah. I mean, it is still like beholden to the original where they're like, we want to honor the legacy of the OG cast. This is the first time that we're recasting these characters, and I think they did a good job of that.
The casting, we all agree, is
yes.
I think
they nailed the casting.
Yeah, and this will be my final point. They did, with as much respect and dignity as you could, a reboot that honors the legacy, like Colin was saying, and maintaining the prime timeline, and then saying, here's a new thing with a really good cast, good chemistry, and I'm excited for the next one. It was satisfying, more or less, start to finish for me, and it's probably, in my opinion, it's my favorite thing J.J. Abrams has made. Period. I think that's
it's his best movie.
Okay.
It's his most.
You like it is his best movie.
This better than Force Awakens.
100%.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of his pinnacle because I think it's all nostalgia bait. And I think that's the only thing.
It's a less elegant reboot. It's a less elegant soft reboot. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Can you imagine if Harrison Ford came through a time portal and had to explain he was from another dimension to Alden Aaron, right?
Somehow Palpatine returned.
It's called the Dial of Destiny.
No, it's called the Worlds
Harrison,
Between.
Yeah.
Ahsoka Tano told me about it. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Anyway. Let me ask you this, though. Random question. So now that they've recast these actors for these movies and now for Strange New Worlds, do you think one day we will get a recasted Next Generation, a new Picard?
I have been asking you guys since we did the Picard movies, do you want a Kelvin timeline Picard stuff? To me, that's where the fourth one would have gone, I guess, to give us some of those characters.
Still could be made.
Yeah.
That's a fun thought experiment. Like,
I want it. I don't know what it would be. But
I'm thinking famous plot events from TNG's history, but you can change it just enough, so like the Borg with Locutus, you could do that again with some changes to how it plays out.
But it wasn't ever Picard who became Locutus. It's Jonathan Frakes who was taken and turned to him. That would be
359 thing. Yeah.
Here's an idea, right? So if you're doing a prequel TNG with new actors and stuff, you get James McAvoy in a bald cap.
Doesn't need one. He has no hair left.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's so funny.
James McAvoy, who played a young Professor X.
He would crush dog. That would be so funny. Young Picard, young Xavier.
Who's your Riker?
Riker, Michael Fassbender, obviously.
That's really good. I would have said Pedro.
I feel like they would have to go with more unknown because, like, at the time, Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto were not huge names. They were like Zachary Quinto was big from Heroes. Siler, everyone knew Siler, but this was his first film role, and then Chris Pine was really just up and coming and not established
I almost
name
want
at
to
all.
say the child actor slumming it was Anton Yelchin, who had been famous for so much longer than everybody else. And it was kind of like, oh, he's taking the smaller role of, because I think he read for Kirk, if I did my research correctly.
And then you have like John Cho, like, oh yeah, I know, Harold and Kumar.
Yep.
But really, yeah, a lot of more kind of up and coming actors. So I'd like, if they're going to do that for TNG and they're going to cast young versions of the TNG cast, maybe go with
it'll be like, who's the guy who stars in Outlander or whatever, like the hot streaming show is.
This is why the only person I want to cast, it'll be Data, and it's Timothy Chalamet.
I hate that, Mike.
No,
I hate everything about it.
They're going for a really big budget. They can get Timothy Chalamet.
Oh, how are you?
It's a movie.
With his Keanu Reeves delivery.
Yeah.
Timmy.
Well, yeah, good job, I think, overall with 2009.
Yes.
And it did create interest,
My final thought is, this is the most interesting solve to a math equation that a screenwriter has ever come up with. And I truly think it should be studied, regardless of what you think of the final product. And that's, I'll just always appreciate it for that.
It never
sort of a stroke of brilliance to sort of do what they did with the time travel and stuff. And again, this is way before multiverses became.
Oh no!
Every movie,
Yeah,
we only had one Spider-Man. We only had one Spider-Man at this point.
Apparently, we were wrapping
not
up
even
that
Andrew Garfield.
Spider-Man. That's really blowing my mind. We're saying goodbye to him.
Yeah, it's an interesting artifact, though, especially in the context of restudying, rewatching all these, and we're right in the middle of season 2 of Strange New Worlds. It's like, what a thing this was, So I am looking forward next month to watch Into Darkness and Beyond.
So we've got 2 more, and like I've said on previous episodes, like there has been some talks of like making a 4th movie that was originally going to come out in like December 2024. I don't know what the status of that is. I mean, it's not shooting right now. Obviously, it's in pre-production still. So I don't know what they're going to do. Obviously, without Anton Yelchin. That's kind of a hit to the cast. But I would
How
love
much
to
you need to pay Zoe Saldana now? Like she's an avatar. Like
like the last one they did, Beyond, that was like what 2014 or something.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. But I say bring this cast back, do a 4th movie.
Is it not some sort of thing still? I guess the loophole is they make all the Paramount Plus stuff, but they don't have to make another Star Trek movie to hold on to these rights anymore.
They don't have to. I guess not, because they don't have to make a movie because they're doing the whole new show.
They're like, we are active in that IP, so okay.
But again, like I hinted at in previous weeks, Paramount as a studio is not doing well right now, and Paramount Plus, it may not even be around in a year,
right?
From what I'm reading. So it's a lot of streamers are having problems right now with.
Well, I remember when it was called CBS All Access, and all this stuff was made as CBS All Access Originals. If you guys
Discovery, Discovery was like a launch title for CBS All Access.
Yes, it was.
Watch Star Trek Discovery only on CBS All Access.
Jacob, when you were telling the woes of the Paramount stuff, did we specifically say, and it's kind of all highlighted or shined by them destroying a Star Trek property? You will never be able to see again. What was that Nickelodeon one called?
Prodigy.
Gone. Delisted.
Gone. Just gone forever, Mike.
Yeah. They red mattered it.
It's crazy that they're doing these to shows now.
Did I tell you I'm from the Kelvin timeline of Prodigy, where it's still going?
Yeah. Jesus. It's really rough. And our beloved Strange New Worlds, we want that to go for like 7 seasons.
I dare you to cancel and remove that, because not only will you be getting some letters, you will be getting some anthrax, and I will openly threaten that right now.
Do not cancel the one good thing in this society.
Don't you dare.
Apparently still going forward with this Starfleet Academy show, because their idea is to have 2 major shows running concurrently. So they had Discovery and Picard for a while, then it was Picard and Strange New Worlds, with Discovery ending. Picard's ending as well, so it's going to be Strange New Worlds and Starfleet Academy. And then they're also making a TV movie or a Paramount original movie about Section 31 with Michelle Yeoh. I think that's still on.
Yeah. Yep.
So okay.
The Academy, this is finally the idea. This is a Kirk prequel or what?
No, I think it's new characters.
But that's just what this project. It's just going to be a kids show.
I don't think
it's going to be a live action. maybe more teen or young adult focused.
Yeah.
It's gonna be,
This is important for me. Did you guys watch the Nickelodeon show growing up, Space Case?
No.
Oh, that's
Space
sounding
Cases.
familiar. I need to see a picture.
Will you both Google it right now, please? Jacob, one of the
Space
girls is from your beloved Firefly. She goes on to do that. What's the girl's name?
Okay.
Jewel Staith or something like that?
Yeah,
Oh,
Jewel
sure,
State.
yeah. The engineer, right?
Do you guys remember they had their own kids Star Trek show? Do you guys remember Space Case? Is this in your brain, Mike?
Yes.
Is this coming back to you? You've never seen this, Jacob? Will you promise me you will watch the intro song?
Yeah.
There's someone who
explains
hears really
the
good.
entire
That's their whole
purpose of the
thing,
show?
right?
Mike,
Yeah.
there is an alien who has super hearing and super strength, and he was born in an egg, and he doesn't have any parents. I remember everything about Space.
I'm reading.
Wow.
First thing I'm reading about it, because of budget constraints, props from Are You Afraid of the Dark and other Nickelodeon shows were used in the show.
Was it Canadian, Jacob?
know.
Doesn't say.
Are You
it was-
Afraid of the
yeah,
Dark?
Yeah, it was.
Yes,
it was
that
shot
one-
in Canada.
Wow.
100% makes sense.
Had
So
reruns with
Nickelodeon,
Keanu
why did they
Reeves.
shoot so much stuff in Canada? That's so weird.
Cheap.
Early.
Tax breaks, maybe.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of talent comes out of Canada, you know? Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
Watch, listeners. We will be doing an episode next week on Space Case.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Make sure to watch both seasons.
Yeah, no, Dead Reckoning get wrecked. We're not doing that. We're watching Space
No.
Cases instead.
That's right. All
Um,
Jacob's research is for not for
Yeah.
the Mission Impossible.
And like I said, I have been watching all those Mission Impossible. They're all on Paramount Plus, my favorite streaming
You love
network.
it. All you talk about.
The only thing they've got is Mission Impossible and Star Trek and like some other action shows. And the Family Stallone, right? The reality show. with
Please don't talk to
Sylvester
me about
Stallone's
my favorite
family.
show. Please don't. Please keep my favorite show's name out of your mouth.
Yeah, we got to keep this
Now-
episode short, you know?
Right.
Who made Barbie? Is that Paramount?
I don't.
Or is that Warner Brothers? movie?
Googling.
I don't think it's Paramount because I don't think
Who would
they
have a deal with Mattel?
Transformers.
No.
No, that's Hasbro.
No, because that's
Sorry,
Hasbro. That's
sacrilege.
Paramount.
I'm sorry, yeah. I broke the law.
Or,
I don't think it's
Um,
Paramount.
Universal. No, it is Paramount because they
Is
have
it?
the
So
Earth.
they
Warner
have-
Brothers Pictures.
Oh,
Oh,
it's
Warner.
WB is Barbie. Okay.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say they wouldn't have Mission Impossible and Barbie.
No,
coming
that's
out
what I
the
was
same
worried about.
week
And
or
Oppenheimer's Universal because Nolan left. So okay, all right, interesting.
All
This
right.
is all side chatter, listeners.
But
You,
at least
of
I
course,
get
came
to
here
see
for
Benji.
Star
We
Trek.
get
That's
our
right.
old Simon Pegg connection.
right.
So
You get
That's
Scotty
right.
himself
Benji.
coming back
Mhm.
next week.
yeah, so if you like that actor, go watch Dead Reckoning.
Get ready,
Not about Tom
Normies.
Cruise, but yeah. But we've been cruising with Star Trek 2009. And thanks for cruising with us. You know.
That's right. It's
God,
been a hell of
thank
a
you so
ride.
much.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be back next month, of course, with Star Trek Into
Last
Darkness.
question. I'm so sorry, guys, and we could save this for the next one, but I have to
Yeah.
ask it.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen JJ's TED Talk about the mystery box?
The
And his
mystery box.
The
Yeah,
whole
that was his
philosophy on the
thing.
mystery box. Yeah.
It makes me.
And
hate
that was the
him.
problem with Lost, was that he
It's
set
the
up these
worst.
mystery boxes that didn't pay off.
And it's interesting that never touched Star Trek because obviously it's so logical and straightforward. There's just none of that element that would work.
Yeah.
So thank God.
Well, what they do
Maybe
with
this
this
is
next
his
movie,
best, Mike. Maybe you're
Yeah.
right.
it'll be
Best
interesting to see.
Yeah,
what
I
you-
guess they do.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what you guys think of the next movie. I know you've probably seen
Yes.
it before, but
I haven't rewatched it.
Just
in
what they
a
do
long,
with
long
it.
Time.
It's been a
Yeah.
while.
Yep.
yeah. So find out next month, Normies. Tune in.
We're excited.
Otherwise,
As always,
get
check us
reckoned.
out.
Check us out.
Get ready to get dead wrecked. Part 1. But otherwise, check us out at normies_like_us on all social media. You can rate, review, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Helps out the podcast a lot. And you can message us and say, I've been watching these Star Treks along with you. Here's my ranking. You probably can't see it from all the lens flare, but there it is.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Host?
Always do. And yes, we've been your hosts. This is, I'm going to say, engineer Colin.
This is Dr.
Give it all she's got.
McCoy. Oh, damn it. I'm a podcast host, not an engineer.
Oh, God.
And this is the Kabayashi Maru, and I have been and always shall be your Normie. Thanks,
Live
Normies.
long and prosper, normies.
Live
I just
long and
super glue
prosper.
my hand. I can't naturally do this.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.